Hello! Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. So, this is going to be an interesting one, specifically because I've never tried rendering while streaming. So, this might be a very short stream. It might crash on the very first render. If it does, I'm going, hey, Frost Lightyear, thank you so much for the subscription! That's awesome! Thank you so much! Um, anyway, what I was saying is if it does crash, I'm gonna try to record this demo anyway, just kind of without the stream. That way I can post it up for everyone anyway. So it's gonna be an interesting test. We'll see. Ideally, what I should have is a second computer here doing the streaming while my main computer does the rendering. But I don't have that set up right now. So we'll see how it goes. Now, also, before I forget, hello Frost Lightyear, Brant Nerd, that's an awesome name. K-Strat, hello, welcome to the stream. Now, I had something else I was gonna say. Now I've totally forgotten. Gone. Anyway, hey Lemon Cup, hello! So today's stream is going to be all about rendering. Now, rendering is a very deep subject. It's one of those things that if there wasn't an animation mentor, you could have a render mentor. That is 18 months of simply learning rendering. It is insanely deep in all the things that you can learn about it. So we're not going to learn everything in this one stream. This is going to be the basics, the things that you need to know to create a very simple render that gives you good results, and hopefully enough information that you can play around and at least know what you're getting into, and not just kind of changing settings blindly and hoping it gives you a decent result. So that's kind of my goal with this. Now, throughout this whole process, definitely let me know if you have questions, or if something doesn't make sense. Because it is a deep subject, so if I forget to mention something, or if I kind of skip a step and you're not sure what I just did, definitely let me know. I want to make sure I cover this in a way that is clear for all of you. So, with that, let's jump right in. Okay, so, there we go. Haha, it works. So this is a very simple pose that I did just before the stream, like in 5 minutes, just to kind of give us a few different things to focus on while we're rendering. The first thing that I want is to have the mouth open, because that is a big problem area in a lot of play blasts and things like that, is that when you play blast with the mouth open, and let's kind of zoom in here, let's say our shot was right here, well, we get this kind of lit mouth where you can see all the teeth, the tongue, everything. That looks very weird because there's no shadows in the mouth, which it can make certain shots look very strange, especially if you've got a big cartoony shot where the characters are really opening their mouths and you just create a play blast. It can look weird. So I wanted a little bit of that. And then there's a few other areas where, do you say was more about rendering with Arnold on AM? Oh no, there's nothing about rendering on Arnold on AM. But what I'm hoping to do is make small videos just on specific topics that you guys can follow along with. So this is kind of my first test on creating these videos to see if it works out well, and if it works out to kind of do it in this kind of method. That way you can ask questions and all this stuff. So definitely let me know if it's not working out, or if there's something else you'd like to see, some like better way of showing this specific topic, because it is a deep one. Now, we've got our scene here. I've set it up. The first thing we need when you're rendering, same thing with animation, is a camera. A specific camera to render from. You never want to render from your main perspective work camera. The big reason is with animation, when you're animating from your work camera here, if I was animating this and then I suddenly make a small tweak, suddenly a lot of little things might not work anymore, which means we have to reanimate things. It's the same thing with rendering. If you've got a camera and I've rendered from this view angle here, and then I move it, I suddenly have to make a lot of changes. I also lose the ability to compare my old render versus my new render, which is a very, it's not a painful process, but it can be tricky. So we want to have a stable camera, a reusable camera. Now, if the camera is animated, that's fine, as long as it's consistent. So definitely always make sure you have this render camera or shot camera. Is the same thing. Okay, and about the 18-month schooling, I was just saying that with rendering is one of those topics that you can literally spend 18 months. Like, if there was a render mentor, you could spend 18 months simply learning about rendering and still not know everything there is to it. It is a insanely deep topic, especially when you start getting into the mathematics of lights and of rendering, and there's just so much that you can learn from rendering or in rendering, that it's very tricky to go, oh, I'm going to learn animation and I'm going to learn rendering at the same time. They are very different things, but as animators we can learn a little bit about rendering to get really good results, just kind of at a very quick level. So that's what I'm kind of hoping to show here, that you don't need those years of learning rendering to get really good results very quickly and consistently. So we've got our scene here. Now, with this scene, I would be ready to... luckily, we're not going to be using any math here. The math comes in when you're trying to create photorealistic lighting, because then you have to match the intensity of a real light versus a CG light in your scene. And there's a bunch of different math and calculations that go into making sure all the intensities match, the color temperatures match, all of that stuff. We won't have to worry about any of that. Ours is going to be very artistic, which is nice. So I've got this scene, and at this point, animation-wise, I could create a play blast and I'm good to go. I don't need to do anything else to this scene in order to get it play blasted and on my demo reel. But what if I want to render this? If I want to render this, I have a few steps I need to do before it's actually ready to be rendered. The first thing is I need to choose the renderer I want. And this is a kind of stumbling block on a lot of people when they first start out, because if you're completely new to Maya, you might not realize that there are different rendering engines that you can use. Now, to see these, I can open up the render settings. You can click on these clapboard icons to open all the different render menus. The one with the gear right here is the render settings. Additionally, you can also go to Windows, rendering editors, and find all the menus you need right in here. The big ones are going to be the render view, hypershade, and render settings. For more advanced renders, you'd need the render setup and light editor. We won't have to worry about those. So we've got our render settings. Let's kind of focus on the first panel here. This is which render are we using? By default, most Maya programs will be set to Maya software, which honestly is the worst renderer. Maya software does not give you very good results. It's a very quick, simple, like just get something rendered out renderer. And let's kind of just open our render view here and create a quick render. I'll go over the details on all the buttons here in just a little bit. But make sure I'm rendering from the right camera. There we go. So you can see how this is the results that we get straight out of Maya software. Not very pretty. Honestly, I much prefer the straight viewport compared to Maya software. Maya software tends to make things look very dead, for lack of a better word. After that, we have Maya Hardware. Maya Hardware basically takes what you see in your viewport here and makes an image out of it. So if I render here with Maya Hardware, we get pretty much exactly what we see in the viewport, which is very nice. If you're doing pose tests, things like that, you can. It's basically hitting or getting a screen grab without getting a screen grab. Yes, the Sims soundtrack. I'm glad you recognize that. I love their soundtrack. This is actually an OC remix. Sims 3 music colors. But Hardware 2.0 is really nice because you can get that, and additionally it comes with an alpha, so you can see I get the alpha of my pose as well, so I could cut it out, see the silhouette, which is very handy for showing your mentor or something like that. So that's very handy, but it doesn't give us really nice results. It's really just a screen grab. So how do we get the really nice results? Well, after that we have Arnold or Mental Ray. Maya Vector is another one that comes in. I don't really use that one too often. But you have Arnold and Mental Ray in Maya. If you're using Maya 2016 and below, you're going to have Mental Ray. If you're using 2017 and above, you're going to have Arnold, which both of them are really good renderers. Mental Ray is just an older one that's not really used all that often anymore, and Arnold is just much easier to use. It's much less technicality, much less math that has to go in. So we're going to be using the Arnold renderer here. Now, there are also a bunch of other renderers. If you're using 3ds Max, I believe they have V-Ray. There's third-party renderers like Keylight, RenderMan, which is what Pixar uses. A bunch of renderers. They're all good in their own ways. There's not one is better than the other. They're all just different. Personally, I like Arnold just because it's built into Maya and it's easy to use. So we're going to switch to this, and let's just do a very quick render with what we have right now. So hit render, and we'll just kind of use this as a comparison. And that's so pretty. It's black. The reason for this is we have no lights in our scene. The other two renderers can use Maya's default viewport lights, which it's technically a light. It's why we can see something in the viewport, but it's not a real physical light in the scene, or physical light in the scene. It's just kind of a simulated fake light. And those work for simpler renderers. Arnold depends on actual lighting. It depends on lights in your scene that emit photons that then bounce around through the scene. So we're going to need to add lights. This is very important for our workflow. If we don't, we're not going to get any results. So let's do that very quickly. Now, additionally in here, we'll go over some of these settings in a little bit, but a very important one when you're starting to do your rendering is make sure you're rendering at a small size. I'm going to render at 720 by 405. The big reason for this is rendering is slow. It really is. And the last thing you want is to start your rendering process by just going, okay, I'm going to render at full 1920 or maybe 4K. I'm going to render a 4K image right from the start. You can see that this render here took 2 seconds. This one here took 1 second. This black frame that has nothing in it took 6 seconds because we're using a much more complicated renderer for blackness. If we render at big sizes, we'll just be rendering and wasting a bunch of time. When you're first starting to set up your render, just getting everything in place, go at a low quality, small size. It's going to save you time and increase your productivity. Now, kind of additionally, I'm just going to lower the sample rates here. Now I'm going to explain what sample rates are in just a bit here, because they are very important to our renders. But I'm just going to lower that for now. That's basically lowering the quality of the render. So we've got that for now. let's kind of move our render view off to the side here and actually start setting up our scene. Now, there's a few different ways you can set up your lighting for a scene like this. You can create your own lighting or get image-based lighting. I'll show you both of these methods here because they're both useful for different types of setups. The typical setup that we as animators will use is creating our own lights. We're going to create lights in our scene, put them in place, and basically mimic a real scene. So if there's a window, we'll want a nice big bright light with sunlight streaming in, maybe a lamp, put a light in there so that it looks like there's light coming from the lamp, things like that. So since I just have this nice empty scene, what I'm going to do is just make a very basic stage lighting. Stage lighting is basically like if ever you've seen like product images, 3-point lighting. It's very simple to set up and gives you really nice results. Oh, take care, K-Strat. Will you cover changing materials? Yes, I will definitely cover changing materials because as you'll see here, if we don't change materials, we're going to get some interesting results. And all of this is recorded, so if you don't come back before I cover that, it will be recorded and you'll be able to go over all of that. It's not that complicated, luckily, which is always nice for us. But let's create some lights. The first thing, before I even create the light though, is I'm going to create a very basic set. And this is a nice set that I like to use for creating simple poses or props, things that I just kind of want to get a nice lighting for. And it's basically a, what's the term I'm looking for? A drop screen. So I'm going to just create a polygon plane right here. Scale it up. Let's make it really wide and a little deep here. I'm going to reduce the detail. And let's add 2 to height here. So we just get this one division right down the middle. Oh, not 3, 2. Like so. Now I can just kind of move this back here. Let's rotate it so that it's kind of parallel with the camera. So you can see where the camera is pointing to where the scene is right there. And I'm just going to take the back edge and move it up. Like this. Kind of make a 90-degree wall. Like that. Now the reason I make it like this is I can now take the edge in the middle here and bevel it and just increase my segments. And I get this nice kind of bent screen here. And the reason this is very nice is it'll allow light to bounce on our characters and create a very nice even lighting, which is fantastic for display purposes. So if you're ever having to display a product or just want to create like a pose like this and just want some quick lighting that you don't have to think about too much, this is perfect. So we've got that. Now if I hit render, nothing would happen still because we still have no lights. This is the next very important thing we need to do. We need to actually add lights. Now when you're using Arnold, there's 2 ways to add lights. You can go to create lights right here. And these are the basic Maya lights, which are perfectly good. These are very, very good lights to use. Or you can actually go to the Arnold menu here and go to its lights. Some of them are very similar to Maya's lights, but they will have a little bit more control, more photorealistic lighting. So for a scene like this, I like to use area lights typically. Area lights are like big panel lights. If ever you've seen it like at a studio or movie set, they have these big lights that just shine. It's just like a panel with light bulbs on it. That's basically what an area light is. It's very similar to that. So I'm going to create 3 area lights. And basically what I'm doing is I'm going to create 3-point lighting. Now 3-point lighting is basically 3 lights that illuminate your scene. And let me see if I can kind of illustrate this. Do I have Epic Pen here? Aha, it worked. So let me kind of just illustrate this concept before we actually set it up here. And again, if anyone has questions while I'm covering any of this, definitely let me know. Oh, and there you go. My post about questions just came up. Oh, there's no weird questions. Always ask questions. I love questions. So while you're typing that out, let me just kind of cover 3-point lighting. So let's say we've got our subject here. Imagine this is a top view. A 3-point lighting setup will be made up of 3 lights. You're going to have 1 light, let's say over here, and this will be your key light. This is going to be the most intense light. This is basically the main direction of your light. So if you imagine like my camera right here, my key light, which way is it, is here. It's this big bright light on my face, and if I turn this up here, you'll see, like, I'm kind of blinding myself now. That's the key light. It's the main... Boy, that is bright. I'm blind. That's the main light in the scene, which is the main control light. That's very nice. Now, with that, we'll add in another light here, which is kind of on the opposite side of the character. So you can see how that points over here. We're going to add in another light right there. This is going to be the fill light. Now the fill light is a lower intensity light that is used to fill in shadows. It's basically to avoid the feeling of, like, if this is the shadow side right here, you can see this side of my face is a little in shadow, but you can still see it. It's not pitch black because there's another light shining on this side, which makes it so that you can see it. And I'll show this in the renders as well, just so you can see it visually. And then lastly, we're going to add another light back here. Now this is going to be a very small light, but super bright and intense. That shines kind of this way. It's kind of opposite of the key light. Now, it's not the exact positions don't really matter. You can kind of move them around. But this is going to be the rim light. And basically what this is going to add is a way of distinguishing the character from the background. It's going to be this single kind of bright intensity line across the character that'll help to make them pop a little bit more and kind of make it a little bit more visually interesting. So this is 3-point lighting. And it's a great lighting setup, especially when you're new to lighting and you just want to get something quick that looks good without having to think, okay, I'm in a room and there's going to be 5 light bulbs over there and then a lamp over there and a window over there, and where do I put all of this and where do the shadows come from, and it just makes a big mess. This is very simple, gives you really good results. So let's turn that off there and kind of set this up. Okay, so just installed Maya 2017 for Arnold. Where's the mentor tab so I can bring in the characters? To bring the characters in with newer versions of Maya, there won't be a mentor tab. So to bring in a character like Jules here, what you need to do is go to File, Create a Reference, and then just browse for the character on your system. So I would go to my AM folder here, to my AMP folder, and then find the characters in here. So here's all my characters. I could go into the crew and find the rig I need right in there. So it's a little bit of a longer process, but the benefits of using newer versions of Maya are way nicer for me, especially. You get Arnold and it's much faster. Now, if you're not sure exactly where your folder is on your system, open up AMP, right-click in an empty space, where, like, I can't show it here, but let's say you're in AMP and this is the folder where Jules is in, like this. Just right-click in any empty space and hit explore here. That'll bring you right to that folder, and you'll be able to find the exact location of that file. So it's a little longer, but I find I've gotten so used to this method now that it's second nature. 2018 or 17? I personally prefer 18. I've had 17, and all the animations and work that I've done on it no longer open. I was doing an animated shot here on the streams, like a dialogue shot and all of that stuff, and I can't open it anymore because I was animating in 2017, and now it just crashes every single time I work on it. So I haven't had that problem with 2018. It seems like it's just... Oh. Something fell. I think it was just a fan. So it was just something on 2017 on my system, but I've also heard that other people have that issue. My cat's actually sleeping right there on the couch, so he's not the culprit this time. Cat adventures going on in the background. If he did that, I would be surprised. I'm guessing it's just a fan fell over. It's been super warm here lately, and everywhere it seems. So I've got a lot of fans running upstairs. But let's see. We've got our characters here. Let's set up our lights. So when you're setting up lights, the big thing is to just put them in appealing places. Now I'm gonna just take this and kind of point it to the character. Hey, Brain Over Heart, hello! How's it going? I'm doing much better now. Definitely don't have the plague anymore, whatever it was that I had caught for those few days. It's still in there a little bit, but way better. So I've got my light here. Now, I want to point this directly to the character. If ever you're trying to point a light to a character, and the same goes for a camera actually, there's a few different ways you can do this. The first is you can just move it normally, like so. But it's kind of hard to tell exactly where I'm pointing this, and then if I start adding more rotations in here, it can be very tricky to get this exactly where I need it to be. To make this easier, what I can do is select the light and hit T on the keyboard. T as in technical. And that'll bring in a new manipulator. Now in this case it's not working for this specific light. Let's bring in a different light just to kind of show that tool. And it's a very specific tool to certain objects. So I'm gonna bring in a spotlight here, hit T, and there you go. Now I've got a double manipulator. What this allows me to do is take one manipulator. This will adjust the position of the cam or the light or the camera, and then the other one adjusts where it points to. So I can just move that kind of pivot area to the character's face, let's say, and then no matter where I move this light, it looks at that character. Way easier than trying to go, I think it's pointing in the right direction, and just constantly moving things around. Let's see, is that dance animation still in progress or finished? It's still technically in progress, but I figured I'd take a break from it just because we've been doing it for so long. Cover some new topics, and then maybe come back to it with fresh eyes. Or I might just kind of clean it up on my own time and then kind of just do a compilation of it, of the main important points, simply because like we've been spending so much time on it. I don't know if it's that interesting for people to watch consistently and over. I don't know how many weeks I was on polishing. Polishing usually doesn't take that long. Polishing is pretty quick overall. It's still a big process, but it's definitely longer streaming, which I didn't plan for. So we've got this method here for moving lights. Oh, Lemon Cup, I'm glad it is helpful. Hopefully it's gonna go well and we're not gonna crash. But I definitely do want to do more of these. I kind of want to do a series of these, that way people can reference back to it, because I know it's something people really want to do, and it's not that difficult. It's just hard to jump into at first. and to know where to start. So let's get rid of this light. I'm not going to need it. But we jump back to this light, and I hit T, and there's no manipulator. It doesn't have one. Well, how do I move this in a nice, easy method that I'm not constantly, is this pointing at his face? Is it not? I'm not sure. And then fiddle, fiddle, fiddle with all the rotations. That's a pain. I want to be quick with it. I want to position this light very quickly. So I can select the light, and in my viewport here, I'll go to Panels, Look Through Selected. And now I'm going to be looking through the light. Now if I want to make sure I know exactly where it's pointing, so I have kind of a cursor here, I can go to View, Camera Settings, and add in a field chart. And this will give me kind of a target area. So now I can move this light, and it's not really moving too well here. Let me refocus that. There we go. So I can move the light here, and I'm actually looking through the light. And I can just position that. Let's say I want it to be kind of focused on his face here, about that angle, kind of 3/4 onto him. Once I've done that, I go to my camera here, perspective, go back to my perspective camera, and there you go. The light has been repositioned. Now, if you're doing this very often, what I'll often do is switch my layout here. So let's go to Panels, Layouts, and go to 2 panes, split top here. So I'm going to have this bottom pane, and I'm just going to go to Panels, Look Through Selected here at the bottom. So select the light, Panel, Look Through Selected. And here you'll see that we get that live feedback now, where we can see as I'm moving this, it's actually moving that light. So there we go. And then again, turn on that to kind of frame it up like so. I kind of want a higher angle than I had before. There we go. So I've positioned that light where I want it to be. Now this is just one light here. Let's create all the others, and then I'll show what each one does separately. Or actually, let's just do the one for now. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Something like this. Now, this is not going to be super important right now, but just kind of something to keep in mind. When you're working in Maya, the size of the lights don't always matter. It's the same with a camera. If I take this camera here, oops, don't want to move it there. Keep it over there. If I take this camera and then scale it up like so, it doesn't affect my actual camera, what I'm looking through. This is just kind of a symbol that I can see in my viewport. Some lights are like that. You can scale them, it won't make a difference. Arnold's lights, like the one I'm using here, it's an AI light, these do matter with their size. The bigger they are, the brighter they'll be. Kind of like in real life. If you've got a big wall of lights, it's going to be much brighter than if you have just one tiny light bulb. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're setting up Arnold lights. But we've got this one here. Now let's go back to our renderer here. Make sure I save my scene, because you never know with rendering whether it's going to crash or not. The other thing I always do when I'm rendering is I have my task manager open to see my CPU and memory usage, because CPU is going to spike. Rendering takes pretty much all of your CPU, and sometimes it won't release it afterwards. So if you notice that your CPU is stuck at like 99% even after the render is done, just save your scene, reopen it, and that should kind of solve the issue. Hopefully we won't run into that. But no more stalling. Let's hit the render button. So I've built a light, built a scene, hit render. Now it's going to be a little smaller than before. Maya won't let you use your GPU to render. It is using my GPU, but it's using the GPU and the CPU to render. It's just a hog on resources. Rendering is super intensive on the system. But you can see here, I've rendered. And We're no better than where we were before. And this is where most people will go, well, it doesn't work. I quit. And obviously, like, I've added everything I need and nothing's showing up. It's super frustrating. The reason nothing is showing up is because this light just isn't strong enough. It's like trying to light up a football stadium with a tiny little like pocket flashlight. It's not going to happen. I need to boost up the intensity of this light. So let's jump right in here. I'm going to select the light and hit Control A to open up my attribute editor. And there's a lot of different things in here. You said exactly what I've done. Excuse me. So we've got a lot of settings here. Let me cover the most important ones first. We're not going to change them all right now, but the important ones here are color and color temperature. Color is the color of the light. So I could make it a green light, a yellow light, a blue light, any kind of color I want. By default, it's white, which actually is a very unnatural light color. Alternatively, with Arnold, what I can do is I can hit this button to use color temperature. Now, color temperature is very nice because that's how light bulbs are measured in real life. So, for example, all I have to do is do a quick Google search for color temperature here. And let's see, just open the first link I find, and here we have a list of color temperatures. So you can see that, oh, a soft white light bulb is 2700 Kelvin. Cool white is 4100 Kelvin. Daylight bulbs are 6500 Kelvin. Ah, isn't that interesting? Just using this, if I was trying to match my room here, and I knew that that light bulb over there is a daylight bulb and that one over there is a cool white bulb, I could set it the exact temperature and have perfect matching lights. It doesn't make any difference in 3D lighting like this to have a single powerful light versus having multiple lower power lights. It depends on what you're trying to create. If they're all kind of pointed in the same direction, having multiple smaller lights is kind of more annoying than having one big powerful one. But if they're kind of spread out, you're gonna have a different effect than one. Like imagine having like one big huge light in a stadium, for example, or everyone in the stadium has a flashlight and they're pointing it at the stadium. It might light up to the same level, but the effect is going to be different. So it's more about the effect, not the actual like final intensity of the light, if that makes sense. I hope I explained that correctly. So it really depends on how you want. So it's preferable to have as few lights as possible. In most cases, I would say yes, simply because it's less things to keep track of. If you've got 100 lights in your scene and you want to make some changes, you have to do it on 100 lights. If you have one big light, you just change out one light and you're good. So I like to work with as few lights as possible, if at all possible. The only time I'll add a new light is if there's a specific reason for it. So for example, a chandelier that has, like, let's say 10 lights all the way around. If they're super bright and they just light up a room evenly, I might just put one big light up there, especially if the camera's not looking at it. But if it's like a chandelier with 10 flames on them, so they're actual candles, and they're just lighting up the room in this eerie way, so there's these 8 or 10 pinpoints of light, then I'll add 10 individual lights to give that effect. So it's more about the effect, less about the final like light intensity. I hope that makes sense. When at all possible, it's always nicer to have fewer. So we've got our light here, and I can set the color temperature. So lower temperatures will be warmer lights, higher temperatures will be cooler lights. So for example, sunlight if I just did a quick search, sunlight, color temperature, if I wanted a scene that was in sunlight, it's about 5500 Kelvin, so 5500, that's daylight right there. If I wanted like any type of light, I could just look for the color temperature, and there you go. Let's see, while we're on the subject of lights, I made something a while ago that you might enjoy. Ooh, nice, I'll have to check that out. So color temperature for me is much more preferable than using color, simply because when I'm using color, oh, I want to make a daylight scene. I guess I'll add some yellow, maybe some orange. It's hard to get that specific light. Whereas when you're using color temperature, it's much easier. So for now, I'm just going to keep it at 6500. That's kind of just a white daylight bulb for a light bulb, which is a very kind of good starting point for a basic scene like what we're going to be working with. Now, the other two options are intensity and exposure. On simpler lights, you'll just have intensity, but Arnold lights add in exposure, which is basically a intensity multiplier. So for example, if I set this to an intensity of 4, that would be like having an exposure of 1. So exposure kind of multiplies the intensity by 4. It's basically a way of, instead of having to set my intensity to, let's say, 10,000 or something like that, I can just put my exposure up, and then I'll have more control over my light. You can use one, you could use the other. It's really up to you. For me, I like to kind of use a mixture of both. So I'm just going to set my exposure to 15 for now. That should be bright enough for this scene, and that should be good. Now we've got a whole other bunch of options here, as you can see. I'm not going to worry about all of those right now. We're just focusing on simple stuff. Hey, Mary Tag, hello! And I use Streamlabs OBS, not just straight OBS, because for some reason OBS seemed to keep crashing on me, which I think it was just my Maya scene. But now I've got all my settings in Streamlabs OBS, so I tend to use that. Plus it has all sorts of cool things in it, which is nice. But we've increased our exposure. Now let's do a render and see what we get. So save your scene. Whenever I'm going to render here, I'm going to make sure to save, because you never know when it's going to crash or Maya might stall. Always save when you're rendering. And let's see, CPU is going up. Ah, we're seeing something. Still not bright enough though. So let's take this, and I'm just going to increase the exposure to 20. Now, at this point, I know that something's coming up. Instead of rendering the whole image, and you do this by hitting the render button here, this big clapboard. Instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is just select a tiny part of the image and hit the button beside that. That is render region. It's just going to render that little thing I've selected. And the reason I want to do this is it's way faster. Instead of always rendering the big image every single time, render just a small area until you get the intensity you need, and then render the whole thing afterwards. It speeds up your workflow much more. Now, after the exposure here, I'm just going to use the intensity to dial this up. So let's kind of bring that up to 10, see what that does. Nope, we've just nuked the scene. Maybe 2. I don't want it too bright, but I definitely want this to be a nice bright light here. Let's keep it like this for now, and hit render. Okay, so our scene is much brighter now, but oh boy, are there some issues. And I'm gonna save this image. So if you want to save an image to compare, what you can do is hit this button right here. If you look at the bottom, it says keep image. This will just save it in your memory, so you can actually compare older versions. And you can see, compared to my previous renders, well, this definitely looks more realistic, in the sense that, oh look, it's shiny, and we're getting some really cool shadows in the background, especially compared to that just looks flat and dead. But he looks like a plastic man. which is something we're going to be addressing in just a little bit here. But let's look at our lighting. First, I'd say our intensity is pretty good for now. Now, with this is just the first base light. This is our key light, the most important light in the scene. It's what kind of fills in the scene. But the problem with just having one key light is look at the other side of his face here. We have no detail. We can't see the other side of his face, really. It's just pure shadow. If you look at my face, this side is in shadow. I have to get my hands oriented right. This side is in shadow, but you can still see it. It's not like I'm Phantom of the Opera and like hidden in shadow and kind of... Tifo? Yes, I'm using Maya 2018 to be specific, which has Arnold built in, if you want to try and practice with this renderer. So we've got this scene. Now, you'll notice the shadows are not quite right. You'll also notice that the background here is super speckly, right there. This is basically... the render is at too low a quality to properly render shadows. That's fine. I want to have quick renders that get me very fast results, and I'm not going to care about the speckliness for quite a while here. Basically, when you want to start cleaning that up, what you would do is open up your render settings and go back to the sampling area that I talked about right at the start. And these samples are basically how many samples, or how many times, you could imagine it this way, how many times will Maya calculate this very specific thing? So for example, the AA here, camera AA, that is basic samples overall for your scene. Diffuse, this is how many times Maya will calculate the color values, to put it simply, the color values of every object. Specular, how many times will it calculate the shining, or the shines of every object? Transmission is like transparency. SSS is subsurface scattering, so that's skin, which we're going to cover in just a little bit. That's going to make a huge difference in our scene. And then volume indirect. And then you've got like adaptive and all of this, all of these samples. And then additionally, if I go to my light, well, look right here. We've got resolution and samples. So if I want my shadows to be higher quality, well, I'd raise my samples here. Again, I'm not going to do that right now. The more you raise your samples, you could, for the exact same render here, not changing anything, just increasing my samples, I could go from a render time of 5 seconds to 15 minutes. Like, it makes a huge difference. Only raise your samples at the very end when you've got the pretty good results, and now you just need to kind of clean it up, polish. That's really what it is. Let's see, I had to relearn how to make it work. It's a little bit of a process, so let me know when you're ready. Whenever you're ready, just post it up. I'd be happy to take a look. And excuse me, I'm gonna cough again. Where's my mute? There you go. I found the mute just in time. Hopefully. That stuff, whatever I got in my lungs, it's pretty much gone now, but that cough just won't go away. Okay, so we've got our light here, and you can see this is just the key light. Let's add in our fill light. So I'm going to take this light here and just duplicate it. Now, let's move it over, and I should actually name these here. So this is going to be AI key light, or I'm just going to put it, yeah, key light. And I keep AI there, so I know it's an Arnold light. AI fill light. And let's reposition this. So again, down here, I'm going to go to panel, look through selected. And now I can position this light kind of opposite. Basically, you're pointing it to the shadows. And let's kind of move it back. I'm going to scale it up just to make kind of a wider light, more diffuse. Maybe about there. Let's kind of bring it back a little bit. And then I'm going to lower its intensity. So we've got color temperature. Let's lower its exposure maybe to 15, intensity of 1. Kind of reset that a little bit. And instead of rendering the whole thing, I'll just render the face for now, just to see what my levels are like. So you can see the difference there, not much. So let's definitely increase that, maybe 18. Quick render. Oh yeah, that's making a difference here. So you can see here how before that face was just in complete darkness, but now we're starting to fill that in. It's not as bright as this side. You can see it's not just kind of washing everything out in pure light, but we're just trying to fill in that darkness. I think I'm gonna go 17 on this. Just have it a little darker, and then I can adjust the intensity a little bit to fine-tune that. Maybe I'm gonna just bring that up to 2 right there. Yeah, 1.3. And you can see this is why rendering a small region is way nicer. If I had to wait 6 seconds for every render, oh, let's make a little change, 6 seconds. Let's make a little change, 6 seconds. I can use up a minute, an hour, a day, super quick, just doing nothing. So you want to be very mindful of your time when you're doing this kind of stuff. So let's do a full render now. I've got the light kind of dialed in. We'll see if it looks decent. There we go. So is there much of a difference? Yes. Look at, for example, the side of the arm here. I know it's super pixelated, but you can see here, those fingers go from really dark shadows. Like if I put my hand here, there's no real dark shadows. My hand isn't light and then pitch darkness. We don't have this huge contrast. Instead, it's a little bit more even. There's definitely a shadow there, but we can see details. It's contrast, but not super contrast, if that makes sense. So this gives us much nicer results. Now we can tweak this further as we go, but for now, let's kind of keep it like so. And I'm going to save this as well. So we've got, that's where we started. Now we've got this. Now let's add the rim light here. Now the rim light, and you don't always have to add a rim light. I want to make that clear. Let's duplicate this and call this AI rim light. Hey Sin, hello, hello. Oh, and here's the links. Let me open both of these up here. Oh, nice. Do you mind if I put it up on stream? I'm feeling definitely way better. There's still a cough, but I don't feel like death anymore. There was, on Saturday, I was basically, I sat on a couch not moving for most of the day. Just because I was feeling so bad. And then on Sunday, I got a little better, but I didn't want to risk losing my voice. So let's see here. Oh, nice. That's cool. Is this for a demo reel or a scene in your shot? That's really nice. That's awesome. So, did you make that in Maya? It's an overlay? Nice. Really well done. I love the detail in it. Oh, nice! An OBS overlay. That's awesome! I'll definitely have to use that for the holidays. I've got a snow overlay, which adds a little snow, but adding those lights in as well. Oh, it's going to be so festive. That's awesome. Thank you so much. That's really neat. Oh man, I can't wait to test it out in OBS here. I'll have to do that after because the last time I tried to tweak something on the fly, it didn't agree with the stream. But I'll definitely be trying that. Thank you. Yeah, so for the rim light, I'm just going to select the light here. Again, position it, and I'm going to position it behind the character. Try to not cut it through the scene here. And the positioning of it is going to be a little like, I'm going to have to adjust it as I go. But basically you want it kind of opposite of your main light in general. And then I'm just going to up the intensity. So let's go to 20 here and 5. And let's go open our render here. And I'm just going to save my scene. And create a quick render. Okay, that's definitely not the right position right there. It's facing too much of the character. So let's kind of move it behind here a little bit more. And basically what I want... Oh, I just rendered the whole image. Yeah, not that. You can see how that's blowing things out right there. But we're starting to get a little bit of what I'm aiming for. So let's kind of fine-tune this a little bit here. Just want a little bit of a highlight right on the edge of the face. Almost like that. Okay, that's looking better. Now it's starting to show up on the other side of the neck there. Don't really want that. So maybe something like this. Now you'll notice that the light's cutting through the floor here. Oh, it's also making the floor really ugly. Not great. If you put the rim light behind the backdrop, could you remove the backdrop trio from the light link? Awesome, you're already ahead of me. That is exactly what I want to do. Because you'll notice that this is a super high intensity light. And it's just blowing everything out. It's just making everything ugly. And that's not what my goal is with this. I just want to add a little highlight to the character. So what I can do is basically make it so that this light doesn't affect the geometry. Now to do this, let me save again. What you want to do is go to Windows, Rendering Editors, and Relationship Editors, I believe. Light linking. I'm going to look at my object-centric light linking. Really, what light-centric or object-centric means is whether you're looking at the light and how it connects to everything, or how you're looking at an object and how it connects to the lights. It's just one way or the other. So, for example, here, I want to look at my polygon plane here, and you can see that all 3 light sources are affecting it. Well, if I just unclick rim light, now basically the plane here is only being affected by these other lights and not the rim light. So let's do a quick render test, see if that kicked in. There you go. That big highlight there is no longer affected, but the character still is. So let's just do a quick full render here and see what we get. There we go. Now this is a little too intense there. We're pretty much nuking out this character. I'm gonna move this further out. The further a light is, the more it's gonna diffuse. So I'm gonna look at the shoulders and the face here. And that's already much better in the sense that we're not blowing things out. Let's increase the intensity. And you can see, making that just that small distance change. Actually, could be this as well. Let me just double check something. Okay, good. So that's what's happening. You'll notice that it is coming up here now. Oh, as soon as I bring this back up. Oh no, good, it is showing up. I just didn't see it before. Perfect. So we've got our light in there, and we're getting just that little highlight right there. Not much. Now the shirt is going to be overblown, but we can already see that it looks like plastic. That's definitely not right. But let's kind of just do another quick render here. Yeah, we're getting some light on the hair there. We'll call it for now. We can adjust it later, but let's do one more render here and see what we got. Let's see. Made this for a friend when he was going to start streaming. He doesn't stream anymore. Let me check that out. Oh, nice! This is awesome. Just so everyone else can see it. That's really cool. Blender again. Really like the curtains. Zoom in here. That's really neat. I love the shadows at the top. Really awesome. And the highlights right there, that really brings your attention up to the top. Let's see. So we've got this now. Now again, the shirt is super bright. That's not gonna stay that way. Really, I'm looking at the face and trying to look at the highlight on the face and the arms. And it's gonna be very small, but if we compare what happened before, you can see deep shadow, not much detail. We added a fill light. That adds the detail, but the problem with just a fill light is oftentimes what happens is the character starts to blend into the background, especially if you have a darker background. And the character, they're gonna miss that little pop to them. By adding the rim light, suddenly there's that pop. They stand out. And if you start actually looking at TV shows or promotional videos and things like that, commercials, you'll notice this light setup where you have a key light, a fill light, and a rim light. Hey, Zomzo, thank you so much for the follow. That's awesome. Thank you so much. So we've got our basic light setup here. Now, is it done? No, we're going to be revisiting these lights definitely. But with this, now I'm ready to start fine-tuning the actual materials in my scene. If you start kind of doing the materials first without having a good basic lighting setup, it can get kind of tricky to like fine-tune everything all at once. I like to get my lights in place, get them at a standard level, and then I can kind of fine-tune things. I have to go. Mother's taking me out to dinner. Ooh, nice. Happy birthday! Just in case I don't see you on the 11th. Congratulations and happy birthday! Hope you have an awesome day and have an awesome dinner. What day is the 11th? Okay, so I won't see you until then. Happy birthday! Hope you have an awesome day and lots of fun and some delicious cake or favorite treats. Hope you have an awesome day. And thank you so much for those overlays and stuff. I really appreciate it. Where's my... There you go. Hide the calendar there. Okay, so where was I? I need to save this just so we can compare it. So let's save that image. Ice cream cake. Oh, ice cream cake is one of the best, especially in weather like this. I don't know what the weather is like for you where you are, but it's super hot here. Oh, just a big ice cream cake. That would be delicious. Okay, so we've got our scene here, but now we run into the problem of this character looks terrible. He really does. We went from this hot enough to justify ice cream sand or ice cream cake, perfect. So we went from this very dull render, which was just bland and lifeless. We had this render, which is basically the viewport. I used to make ice cream cake when I worked at a bakery. The bakery had actually gelato, so we would make gelato ice cream cakes, which was a lot of fun because you got to make it in the freezer. So in a hot summer, you spend more time in the freezer. If so, I want to see a stream with you making ice cream cake. I do make homemade ice cream, so I could make a homemade like ice cream cake with homemade ice cream. I haven't done that. No, actually, I made an ice cream pie once, just as a test. I had an extra pie crust that I didn't know what to do with, so my brother and I went, well, we just made some ice cream. why don't we mix the two together and see how that turns out? And it was actually really good. Kind of weird. Pie crust, it doesn't go super well with ice cream, but it was cold and it held a lot of ice cream, which was fantastic. Does Canada have hot summers? Yeah, it becomes very humid here. I'm not sure what it is in Fahrenheit. It's 44, I think, degrees right now with the humidity, which would be 105? I don't know. I'm not sure what it would be 44 degrees in Fahrenheit. I could look it up, but let's kind of go with the renders here. So we've got these previous renders. 111, okay, yeah. So the sun isn't super hot, but it's that humidity, because especially in Manitoba where I am, there's just a lot of water. There's a lot of lakes, so it gets really kind of humid. So we've got all this, but you'll notice that as soon as we started using rendering, even though our lighting itself looks way better, our scene, our character specifically, looks awful. I trusted you, Kenna. You're supposed to be my Escape from Awful Summers. Luckily for us, like, the summer heat only lasts a month, if that. Then it's very nice spring, very nice fall. It's beautiful. It's just like this July, kind of starting in July, and then sometimes in August it gets really bad. Beautiful 20 degrees in Vancouver. Curse you, Vancouver, and your beautiful weather. In winter it's beautiful, in summer it's beautiful. It's like, it's always beautiful. It's a little wet at times. Try Arizona, it might be cooler. It would be a drier heat, at least, I think. I don't mind like hot heat. It's humid heat that I just can't stand. It's just like, it feels so heavy. Like this morning it was 30 degrees Celsius, but no humidity, and it was just beautiful. The wind was blowing. Oh, it was a beautiful summer day. But then the humidity kicks in the afternoon and it just kills it. Anyway, for the render here, yeah, it rains all the time. Yeah. Oh, can I get an opinion on a 2D walk cycle? It's currently on 4s, missing the detail in the torso. But just for the Canadian I can definitely give you an opinion on the 2D walk cycle. Let's see. Let me finish just this kind of idea before I get totally sidetracked, and then I'll take a look, and then we can come back to the render after, if that's okay. For now, just post the link and I can open it if it's in Sync Sketch. Okay, so we've got our character here, and he looks like plastic. Now, depending on your rig, they might look better, they might look worse. It really depends on how the rigger or whoever set it up created the materials for the character. Either way, for most rigs, especially for most free-to-use rigs that you find online, if you're using one of those, the materials that are going to be put onto the character are going to be very basic materials. They're not going to have all the cool features that more advanced materials will have. So for example, skin. Skin is a very complex material. Skin is not just a Lambert or a Blinn or a Fong or any of those basic materials. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. I can go over it in a little bit. Skin has a lot more interaction with light than it seems to have at first. So how do we start working with this and getting better results for our render? Well, basically, we just need to change the materials. Now, to do this, the first thing you'll need to do is make sure that your character is selectable. So I'm going to select my character here, make sure that I can select his body. This will be different on every rig, but as long as you can select the character, you're good. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the Hypershade. The Hypershade is your home when it comes to this next part. You're going to be spending a lot of time in here. And this window here, the Hypershade, is a great window if you have a second monitor, because there's a lot of things in here. So let's open up the hypershade. For now, I'm just gonna have to try and cram everything in. So let's kind of bring this in here. Move my render view down here, just there. And let's see, how can I fit this properly? So something like this. So the hypershade is basically your collection of materials in your scene. And materials are, you could consider it, what is an object made out of? Is it plastic? Is it rubber? Is it skin? Is it bone? Is it hair? All those different things. And each material corresponds to a different material. Now, one material, for example, this one here, let's say, could be applied to many different objects. So for example, if I created a rubber tire material, I could place it on multiple objects that had that same material, that rubber tire material. Or they can go on one specific object. Now another, you can also see there's a bunch of tabs here. We have textures. These are all the image files that come into our scene. Utilities, this is mathematical nodes. We can talk about those later. We can see our lights. So we have our fill, key, rim. You can see our cameras, all of that stuff. The hypershade has a bunch of different things that we can work with. For the most part, we're going to be working in the materials side. And down here, we have our tool chest. You could kind of consider it our tool chest of different things we can create. So here you'll see our different Lamberts, Fongs, blends. These are basic materials. Or if we go down here under the Arnold section, under the shaders, here are the Arnold shaders, which are much more powerful, the AI shaders. And then down here in this middle area, we have our workbench. Basically, we can create things and then link them all together and make better results. And I'll show exactly how that works in just a second. And then we have our attribute editor, which is pretty much the same thing as the attribute editor over here. It's just kind of built into the window for ease of use. Now, let's work on the shirt first, because the shirt's going to be easy. Oh, perfect. There's the link. So I'll take a look at it after I fix. Oh, it looks awesome. Lumberjack. I'll just show everyone what I'm seeing here. So I'll take a look at that in just a second here. And actually, just if you have the time, and this goes for everyone, if ever you want to share animation with someone, specifically for critique, and not just me, anyone, I highly recommend checking out SyncSketch. SyncSketch is a site where you can use completely free, upload your work to there, and then it has a bunch of review tools, so you can actually draw on things, and it's really, really cool. Definitely check it out if you're into animation and stuff. Great tool to use. But let's start with the shirt here. Simply because it's going to be a very basic material that we can kind of explore or start exploring things with. So to create a new material for the shirt, I'm first going to use an AI standard surface. This is kind of the go-to material for Arnold. It's just kind of gives you the best of all worlds. Yeah, it's the best way to work, exactly. So let's name this. I'm going to call this AI shirt. And then oftentimes I'll use _M for material. I'm going to just avoid that just because it's going to be less typing. And there's our new shirt material. Well, it doesn't really look that good, does it? Now here in the material viewer, this top area here, right now it's set to hardware render. I can actually set this to Arnold render, and it's going to render that material in Arnold live, which is really cool. The problem, as much as I would love to do this, is it does use my CPU to do it. And I'm afraid it might crash the stream. So I'm gonna I'll switch to it here and there, but I'm not gonna do it too often just because I don't want to crash things. Now, I can actually just pause it here. Like that. That way we're not having to switch the render all the time. So we've got our shirt material. Now, before we go into any connections and stuff, let's kind of explore what is available to us in the AI material, because we've got a bunch of different areas here. And at first, they can be very daunting. But when you break them down, it's actually very simple. Your base is the base color. Consider it just like the underlying value of your object. So for example, the shirt is orange. So I would put an orange color, or the texture right in here. The weight of this is how much am I using of this color. So for example, if I put this to 0, it is using 0% of this color or texture. If I put this to 1, it is using 100%. So it's how much do you want to mix it with something else. For most simple materials, a weight of 1 is good. Then we have roughness, which is basically how rough the material, the diffuse color, should look, and metalness. Metalness will change how shiny it is. So let me unpause this. And so we've got this sphere here. Hopefully my stream doesn't crash. If I increase the metalness, now it looks like a chrome sphere. So metalness just adds metalness to the object. Very simple. So that's base. Then we have specular. That's all your highlights on the object. So again, weight. How much highlight is there going to be on this object? A value of 1 means that it's going to shine. Like you're going to see this brightness right there. If I turn that off and do a quick render here, look at that. Now it looks like a matte rubber ball, because rubber doesn't have highlights. So I can adjust how shiny this ball is, what color the shine is, how rough the shine is. So is it more diffused, kind of like hard plastic, or is it like a glass ball, just super, super shiny? Then you have the IOR. The IOR is the index of refraction. And this is one of those things that if you're new to rendering lingo, it can be very confusing. And let me open that Sync Sketch link there. Awesome. Yeah, I think you got it perfect. So index of refraction is one of those cool things that most people don't realize actually exists. And basically, it is that every single object in the world is reflective. And they are all reflective at different levels or indexes of refraction. So what does that mean? Well, imagine a mirror. A mirror has a index of refraction where no matter what angle you are compared to that object, it's going to reflect light. I can't remember if it's higher or lower, but index of refraction, every object has it, and it basically means that at some point along that surface, it's going to become reflective, usually around the contour. So for example, on this ball here, let's try to see if we can actually play with this. If I turn this up, you'll notice that all the reflections happen on the sphere. We can see everything. It's like a glass sphere. So glass has a very high index of refraction. If I turn this down, and don't go too far, you'll see it inverts itself. And if we go lower to 0, now it looks like just a chrome ball. But you'll notice, let's go around here, that it's only reflective around the edges. The very center, there's no reflection anymore. And the closer we get to 1, the less reflection there is in the center. It's all just on the edges. And every object has this. Let me undo this just to get back to our default value here. And the reason this is important is when you figure out the index of refraction for different objects, let me pause this, and if you just do, again, a Google search, Google is so good when you're doing renders, is you can just find a list of index of refractions. So I just went to Wikipedia here, And you can see that water has an index of refraction of 1.33. Let's find something that's like the lens for the human eye has a refraction index of 1.386 to 1.406. What does that mean? Well, if I'm trying to render the proper reflectiveness of the human eye, I just put this number in here, and there you go. That eye is going to be perfectly reflective like how it should be in real life. Plate glass, 1.52, which is, you can see here, that's the default right there. So glass. And you've got a bunch of different things in here. But this index of refraction helps us get that reflectivity. And any object has it. Even like a hard object like this has it. It's just much closer to a value of 1. The closer you get to that edge, to the curvature of an object, the more it's going to be reflective. Human skin also has it. So this becomes extremely helpful for us. Now that's just kind of base level. Now you have anisotropy. I always forget how to pronounce that. That's basically more of a metal reflection, and then the rotation of the anisotropy, which direction it goes in. Okay, so base and specular, we've covered those quite a bit. Let's kind of speed through the rest here. Transmission, how transparent is the object? So if I turn this up here, this sphere is going to become more transparent. So like glass. So if I turn this up all the way, it's going to be perfectly clear glass. And then color of the transparency. So for example, if I wanted blue glass or something like that. But what if I want thickness to this? Well, this is where depth comes in. If I adjust the depth, suddenly it's going to be a thicker material. Scatter. How does light scatter through the object? So does it go through clearly, or is it like frosted glass or something like that? So transmission is transparency in a way. Subsurface. This is going to be the most important one for skin. And I'll cover subsurface when I actually do the skin. It'll make more sense. Coat basically adds a shiny coat to the object. So imagine, I don't know, like a jelly bean, or trying to think of things that have a shiny coat to them. Like fingernails. If ever you put like fingernail polish, that's a coat over top of the fingernail. A shiny coat. That's what this is. It's like shiny coat. Emission is, does it emit light? Thin film, this is for stuff like an oil slick. If you ever seen an oil slick and that kind of refractive rainbow color that comes up from it, that's what thin film creates. Or if ever you've seen like certain beetles, they have that like iridescent or even cars. Some cars, they have this pearl lacquer kind of look to them. That's what thin film recreates. So definitely we don't need to worry about that. Now from there we have geometry, like thin walled. This makes it so that the geometry, instead of being solid, looks paper thin. So if you're doing like leaf petals and things like that, you can turn this on to make them really look thin and have light shine through. Matte is basically flat color, just pure flat color. And then after that we start going into more advanced things which we do not need to worry about for most cases. So that is all the different subsections of this. Now depending on your material, you don't have to use everything at all. You can just use one or two. So for example, a shirt. What is involved in making a shirt look like a shirt? Well, it's got a base color, definitely. So let's set this first. Our base color is going to be a texture. So I'm going to look through here and just find the texture that I need. So let's just look at hardware and look at a plane here and see if it is actually going to show me the texture. Probably not. I can just look at the names there. Ideally your textures should be named, but it's not in this case. So I'm looking for a shirt texture. Now, there it is. That's the spec for the shirt. Now, let's say you've got a scene with a bunch of textures in here. This can be a bit of a pain to look through like this. If you don't want to look at the scene like this, what you can do is find the material with the shirt. So here's the shirt render for this specific one right here. The one that looks like plastic. I can select this, and then in my work area, I'm just going to hit the button right here. This is inputs and outputs, which will basically just throw out or throw into this area all the materials that go into making this shirt. Perfect. So all I need to do now is bring in my AI shirt material that I've created, and I want to connect the out color of the texture. I'll just click on this dot and connect it to base color right there. So I'm basically just doing a connect the dots, which is really nice. I love this node editor in Maya. So I want my texture here, my diffuse texture, to be into the base diffuse of the color. And there we go. We've got the color. Perfect. Now, what's next for the shirt? Specular. The shirt is going to have a shine to it. It's not going to be much, but it will be there. Most objects will have a specular value of some kind. Now to do this, let's look at my let's look at the shader ball here. So this is going to show me kind of a representation of this material that I'm creating. This is way too shiny. So let's turn down the weight of the shine. It shouldn't be very bright at all. Like, look at my shirt. And again, I'm going to blind myself, but you can see that white shine. You see that bright light that you see? That's the specular. It's not much, but it's still there. It's just very dull, for one, and it's rough. Basically, roughness, and let me turn up the weight here just so we can see it. Roughness will not diffuse. I don't want to mix terms here. It's going to just kind of make the specular, instead of a sharp line, it'll just make it blurrier. So by increasing the roughness here, I can start creating a material that still gets that specular light, but it's more of a nice shine to it. And then let's just turn down the weight, maybe 0.2. I don't want it too bright, but I don't want it to not be there either. Now, index of refraction. For this, I can just kind of look at my index of refraction that I have on my other monitor, find a material that's close to it, or I can just kind of lower it, because I know that it's not supposed to be reflective. It's a t-shirt. So if I bring this down to pretty much 1, that'll take off that index of refraction. Maybe I'll just add just a tiny bit, just to the edges. And that's pretty much it. That should be a pretty good t-shirt material. So with this, I need to apply it to the shirt now. And this is where we want our object to be selectable. I'll select the shirt here in my viewport, and let's pause that. And ooh, what's going on here? What's going on? Does that pause all the viewports? Interesting. I've never had that happen before. It's like all my viewports are locked. Interesting. This is a first for me. Let's see. View. Lock camera, no. Camera tools. No. It should be under panel, I would assume. Panel. Interesting. For some reason, Maya locked all my panels. Let's see. What is going on here? This is where Google comes in. Let's see. Viewport. Red border. Let's see. Okay, so I should just have to unpause it in here. And that, no. And this is why you save your scene often, because I might have to reopen it here. Let's see. Yeah, let me just try opening a new scene here and see if that fixes the issue. This is one of the things with Maya is, there you go, is sometimes things like that can happen. Like I just googled it and apparently it's just a glitch in Maya where when you pause the render view in the hypershade, it pauses all the viewports and it freezes all of them. So interesting. We learned something together. I've never actually paused that material viewer. I've never had to. Let's see. Hey, Ivory Bones Jones, hello! This is kind of off topic, but I'm playing with the camera lens right now and I'm having trouble keying the focal length from different frames. If you want to key the focal length, the easiest way to do it is select your camera and you'll see focal length right here. Just right click on it and key selected, if that's what you're talking about. And that should allow you to animate it. And then if you have auto key turned on by default, any changes you do should then update on that camera. But in order to key it initially, you'll need to right click on it right there. So I hope that answers your question. If not, definitely let me know if there's a specific problem that's happening with when you are keying it. So hey DJ Zimama, hello with the emotes. Let's get this shirt here. So we've got the AI shirt there. I'm not going to pause this view here, but I will change it to hardware just to be a little faster. Let's select the shirt. And I'm going to go here in the material viewer. You can do the same thing from the node viewer, but I find it slow for some reason. And right click on the object or on the material, and I'm going to assign material to my selection. So there we go. Now you'll see that it changes in my kind of black or my grayscale view, but it is textured. So let's look at my horrible plastic man and again, do a quick test render. Oh, whoa, okay, that's interesting. I'll just have to do a full render. So render, make sure it's rendering from the right camera, and we'll see how the shirt looks. Definitely a lot less like plastic. You could almost say it's shirt-like. So let this render finish. Make sure, hopefully Maya didn't crash on me. Whenever it's spinning like that, I always get worried. Let's see. What are you still thinking of, Maya? Interesting. It's not frozen, but something's still processing. And like this might seem like, oh, what's going on with your computer? Rendering does this. Rendering is highly intensive on your system. If I'm not showing my CPU status here, but every time I hit render, it goes up to 100% on my CPU. So when you are rendering, be prepared that things might kind of not work properly. Not that it'll break, but like things might not release properly, or things might start acting weird. So you always want to save often and just be prepared. It might crash. Maya might crash, might freeze. It's just part of the process, unfortunately. Whenever you're doing a high intensity, process intensive operation like this. Hey, existential portfolio. Hello. Ivory Bones Jones, you can also do it in the attribute editor. So if I select my camera here, I personally don't like it in the graph edit or the attribute editor just because it's trickier, but if you right click in the value here, you can set a key as well. I personally like it in the channel box just because it's a little easier to see with all the rest of your values, but you can set the key right there too. So, oh yay, Maya stopped processing whatever it was processing. But we can see now that that shirt definitely looks a lot nicer. And it is actually much brighter too, which is nice. It doesn't have that dark brown, like it's not this nice vibrant orange now, which is kind of cool. So, we're getting there. So I'm gonna do his pants next, just because I wonder what the technically spec look like for render farms. Oh yeah, the specs for render farms are huge. If ever you see a render farm at a studio, it's just it's mind-boggling. Like just the processes. They even have like some studios have this big TV with just graphs and charts and like the temperature of each render farm computer, and all of like they can monitor every single one of the computers all from one screen and know, okay, that one's got problems, that one's overheating, that one's not working hard enough, and like it's just awesome. And you basically you're at your computer in a different department and go, okay, I'm gonna render something, boop, hit a button, sends it to the render farm. Your computer doesn't do a bunch of work, and suddenly I've got the render. Whereas here, it's all on my system. I hit render and my whole computer just goes, and just locks down. So 800 gigs of RAM. Oh, I wouldn't surprise me. Well, you consider like for Finding Nemo, just doing one render of the ocean, I believe took 24 hours, something like that, per frame. So, and that's on a render farm. You can imagine on one computer. It's nightmarish. This here took 7 seconds. Cool. So before we go on to the rest here, let me go over Irish Banana's scene that he sent me before I get too distracted here. And then if anyone else had a question that I have forgotten, definitely let me know. I don't want to forget any questions here or anything like that. So let's take a look at this. Very nice. That's awesome. Yeah, it's looking really good. Let's see, it's animated on 2s. Okay, let's see. Frame 1, 5, 9. Okay, on 4s. Nice. My computer would crash and burn. I know people in studios who have they were doing renders and stuff, and their computers literally caught fire and melted because it was so intensive. So it is a thing. Let's see. So overall, I don't have too many notes for you. The big thing that I would recommend is mostly this passing pose right here. The problem that you're running into it with this is a visual pop. Now, a visual pop it's not really an animation pop, and this tends to happen more when you're animating on 2s or 3s or 4s, less so when you're on 1s, but it can still happen. But it is illusion of two things swapping places without the audience knowing. So what I mean by this is you've got this leg right here. So it's positioned right here. And then on the very next frame, you have another leg right here in a very similar position. And the other leg, let's go with black, and no, black's not going to show up, blue and purple. So you have this leg here, there, and on the very next frame, right there. But it's a switch. This leg is this one. It's sliding backwards. But because the legs are so close in proximity to where the opposite one was, instead of feeling like one leg goes back and the other comes forward, it's feeling like this one goes up and this one's coming forward. It's just sliding across the ground. So you can see that when you look up here, you can definitely see that, yeah, the leg's crossing in front. But when we look at the feet, just imagine like you can't see anything above the hand here. You can't tell which foot is which. So what you need to do is to push the difference in the poses so that they don't overlap each other, if that makes sense. So for example, on this frame, let's turn off ghosting here. Instead of having this leg kind of straight down here, keep the leg up here, but then in the back, push it further. So we can feel it kind of coming back from where it was before. So imagine like it is picking up, pushing off. Oh, go back a little bit. So it's there, and then let's see. Yeah, there. It drags. That's a little too much drag right there. But maybe it just kind of drags back like that. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep that consistency of motion so that this leg, you can almost feel the arc that is being created from the foot as it comes forward. It's going to kind of connect everything. And then here, you're good. And see, like this. This one works because we can see this foot already behind the other one. The only thing I would recommend for this one is potentially bring this foot a little further back. So maybe bring that knee just a little more forward to kind of give the passing position a little bit more oomph, to give the feeling that the leg is leading the action. And then just drag that foot ever so slightly. I'm going to exaggerate it here, but drag that foot ever so slightly. This isn't so much for a visual pop issue, but it's more of a silhouette issue. Right now, both feet are kind of lining up with only a tiny little nub here to show the overlap. So you could either drag the foot a little bit more or kind of bring the toes out a little bit more forward there. It's really just to kind of clear that silhouette and avoid the feet feeling like they're overlapping. Then here is good. We get that nice visual arc. Let's take a look at the hands here. Good. He's got very big, broad shoulders and big hands, kind of Wreck-It Ralph like a big upper body. So you're doing a really good job handling the silhouette of the arms here. Now for the arms, one thing, and let me just double check this. It might just be a visual thing. We go from there to there to there, there. Okay. So I'm looking at the spacing of the arm swing here. Yeah, it's feeling a little linear. So if I was to make a spacing chart here for the arm swing, Right now your spacing is kind of looking like this, which you can see it kind of pops, it kind of actually linear right there, goes a little faster and then slows down right here. You can push this just a little bit, not much, you don't want to put it to the extreme, but try to push the ease on this motion a little bit more. So you can see smaller motion there, bigger, smaller. So think of a pendulum. When a pendulum is swinging and you've got the arc right there, it's going to ease in at the apex and go faster in the middle. Arm is very similar. And it's not going to be exactly, but it's going to have more of that ease in, ease out on the ends. Right now it's just feeling a little linear, kind of Terminator-like. And then yeah, I think that's my main notes for you. Now this is more of a stylistic change. It's nothing wrong with your animation. It's just kind of something to think about. If you want him to have a little bit more overlap in his head, as he's coming down on this frame, so if his head's here, I like the simple shape of the head. Like it's just a visual shape, which is really nice. So on this frame, you could drag it up just a bit. So it kind of comes up like that instead. And actually, the head can come down because it is attached to the neck, but have the kind of head tilt back a little bit here. So let me simplify this. The corner is right there. So it's more down as he comes down. That will get you that nice overlap. Now it doesn't have to be like that. That's the thing with the head. Why I say this isn't an issue. It's just kind of a, if you want to add more overlap, this is the way you would do it. But what your animation looks like is that he's leading with his head, kind of bear-like, you could say, which works with his character. He's got this kind of like motion like this as he's walking, where his head's leading the action, and it gives him that kind of just more like bear, like just walking through, and his head's kind of the thing that's leading the action instead of like the lighthearted overlap in the head. So that it's just something to keep in mind here. Nice. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention here. I'm not sure what controls you have on this rig, but a nice thing to add, if you can, is a little bit of shoulder motion. So basically, when one arm comes forward, you want to swing not just the arm, the shoulder joint. Let me switch to full screen. Ha! Full screen. So if you're animating a character moving, it's not just the shoulder joint that rotates, it's the whole clavicle area. And this is very hard in 2D rigs, because depending on what controls you have, it can be tricky to get this motion in there. But if possible, it really adds a whole extra layer to your shot. And basically it's if you're reaching for something, and the same thing when you're walking, your arm swings forward. If it comes forward, you don't just rotate it like this, like an action figure. Oh, it's all traditional? Nice! That's awesome. So if it's traditional, then you can definitely try to add this in. It is tricky when you're doing it in 2D still, because you're having to think of a 3D object that's kind of attached to the rib cage. But without moving my chest, I can take my hand, my shoulder, and rotate it forward. So you can see my chest isn't rotating. You can see my hand right there. But my reach is going quite a bit more just by using my clavicle, my shoulder blade. And the same thing when I go back I can raise it up and down. So as I'm walking, you'll see that that shoulder blade there goes down and up in this arcing motion as I do this. Now your character is not going as high as I am, but when you add that subtle motion in there, that reach forward, the down, and then back up, it avoids the action figure look. The action figure look is like if ever you see an animation and the characters are just moving like this. That's not how we move. We don't just rotate our arms. We've got reach. We've got shoulders. We can shrug. We can do all this motion here. We don't just rotate. So it's just one of those things that you don't have to add, but it does add more to your shot. I hope that makes sense. Do you have any questions on any of that? And if not, I'll let you type there. But if not, let's jump back to the rendering. And if you do have specific questions on anything in your shot, definitely let me know. So we were on to the pants. So let's do the same thing with the pants. First, I'm going to find the pants material for the old rig, the plastic pants, which if you look at these pants, they look like they would be incredibly uncomfortable. Could you imagine trying to put some latex pants like that on? Ugh. Especially on a hot, humid day like it is today where I am. Oh, it would be nightmarish. So I'm going to find the material here and then just hit the inputs, outputs down below here. Now you will notice, same with the shirt, there are actually two different maps in here. There's a specular map and a diffuse map. The specular map is basically a texture that makes it so that Maya doesn't have just an even shininess to an object, which can be very helpful for some things. Now I didn't attach it to the shirt because I wanted to show how to set things up simply, but let's try to add this in to the pants here to see what differences that makes. So let's do the same thing. We've mapped this out. Let's create a AI standard surface. There we go. Oh, and it's my pleasure. I'm glad it was insightful. And let's call this AI pants. Pants. There we go. So again, the weight for the base is going to be 1. I just want 100% of this color, and I'm going to use the pants texture right here. So let's take that, connect it into our base color. Voila. So the color is done. That's pretty simple. Specular. Well, I know it's going to be very similar to the shirt material. Shirt, pants, they are pretty close depending on what they're made out of. I'm going to pick a very similar material. So I can bring my shirt in here and just compare. Weight I'll put to 0.2 just to be close to what my shirt was. And roughness I put to 0.535. And then the IOR is 1.05. Doesn't have to be exact. Okay, but what about this other texture here? This texture is a spec map texture, a specular map, which basically determines which parts of the pants are shiny, which ones aren't. And when I look at my attributes here, I basically have to decide where would that fit in. Is it going to be the weight, the actual brightness of the shines, or is it going to be the roughness, which is basically how tight the shines will be? Now in this case, I think it's going to be under the weight, so the actual brightness of my shines here. So I'm going to take my pants specular here and just bring it into my specular color. So let's connect that in here and see what happens. Or actually, not specular color. I just want specular. Specular color is fine the way it is. So out alpha into specular. There we go. Now, this is the same texture that was used in the previous material. Does not mean that it was made for Arnold. Now, what do I mean by that? Basically, let's take a look at these pants. I've set my material up here and let's render them. And actually first, before I do that, I need to apply them. So I'll select the pants here. And then come in here, AI pants, right click, assign material to selection. Why do I have a duplicate here? Okay, and render. There we go. So that looks pretty good, actually. Yeah, I would say that's pretty good. Now, when I said before that this specular map might not be made for Arnold, what I meant was, depending on the software package, depending on the attributes that you're connecting something to, sometimes an alpha map or a specular map or anything like that might be inversed. So, for example, the bright spots that on one map, when you add it to another material, might be the dim spots. So it's inversing it. If that's the case, what you need to do is just add a reverse node. You're basically flipping the image. And I'm not sure if we're going to run into that here, but if so, I'll show you how to do that. It's very simple. But with this, there we go. We've got the pants. So you can see the difference between our character now. He's going from plastic to actually looking pretty decent. Let's add a few more. So let's do the hair next. Hair is kind of tricky, specifically when you're dealing with like this kind of rig where it's not a hair system, it's just this block of hair. And the reason I say it's complex isn't that it's this really complicated system, but you'll see here that my Arnold has an AI standard hair option, which you would assume, ooh, I'm trying to add a hair material to the hair here. I'll just use the hair material. Except this hair material is made for individual strands of hair. If you're animating with a hair system, it's not made for big geometry of hair. So if you use this, more often than not, what you're going to end up with is hair that doesn't look like hair, oddly enough. It's going to look fake. And I'm trying to render this here to see if we'll be able to see the specifics of what I'm talking about here. Now, just for the sake of it, let's try and see what we can get on this rig using this. Sometimes you can get good results, other times you can't. So this is why I say it's kind of tricky. If this doesn't work, we can just jump back to a standard material. So let's take our hair here. I'm gonna, with all of these materials, you'll have presets here. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But for the hair, you can see, we're gonna go with black hair. Just replace that. Like that should be good. That gives us all of the kind of base options here. And let's see here. With that, let me map out the hair and the render hair. Where is his? There's his hair render. Okay, map these two out. So there's a texture in here. Let's see what happens when we add it to our base color for our hair material. And what results do we get? Let it render. The shader ball here is a great little tool. I love this little thing. it basically gives you a nice kind of preview of what things will look like before you actually apply them. Before Maya had this, it was always a matter of putting it on the object, rendering, testing, over and over and over. Got very tedious. Okay, so let's just go with this for now. So instead of having to select individual objects on my character here, because you'll see the hair is actually applied to the eyebrows, to the hair here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on the hair material, the old one, and select objects with material. This will select all the objects that already have that material, and then I can just right click on the new hair material, assign material to selection. And that's a great way of just doing a mass replace. So now with this, let's look at the hair and just do a quick render. It might look good, might not. Yeah, it's looking very shiny. So you can see the reason it's looking so shiny is because it is made for individual strands of hair. Each strand of hair has its own kind of shine to it, but as a whole, hair becomes a lot more kind of matte looking. So because it's calculating it as if it's one hair, not a head of hair, we're getting this super shine. So let's see if I can just maybe up the roughness and see if that does anything. Yeah, it's just gonna give us this weird look to it. So let's just switch this to a standard surface, which it's not a bad thing, just it's not gonna have as cool a look to it as a pure hair shader. But basically, same thing. What does it have? Our base color, the color of the hair, good. And specular. How specular is hair? Well, hair depends. Is it wet? Is it dry? Is it like, there's so many different types of hair. This is where looking at reference can be very helpful. But I'm just gonna up the roughness of the hair and just turn down the weight and kind of look here to see if that kind of gives me a hair-like material. Maybe a little shinier, something like that. We'll go with something like that. Now, with that, I can... we'll just use this for now. We'll have to rename this again. Hair. And let's again try to add that in. So right click, select objects with material, right click, assign material to selection. So let's do a quick render again. That's a little better. That's looking a little bit more like hair. Maybe a tad shiny still. I think I'm going to turn down the weight of it. And reduce the roughness just a little bit. I want a little bit more of a shine to it, a sharper shine, just not as bright. So that way it kind of gives... I don't really want a wet hair look, but just hair tends to be very shiny in general. It's not just a very rough look. That's better. So there we go. So we've got the hair. And let me just get rid of this image here. That way we can compare before, after. Way better already. Our character is starting to look like a character. We've only got a few major things to add in now. For one, I'm just knowing this rig here. I'm going to create a new AI, not hair, AI standard service, and I'm just going to call this brow lashes. And I'm just going to make a basic black material, no weight to it. high roughness. And the reason for this is I just want to add a material to his eyelashes. Right now they don't actually, they just have this kind of tan material, and I prefer kind of adding a nice black material. Oops, I just docked the hypershade. No specific reason. It's just I kind of like the black look to it a little bit more. So if we look at his eyes here, and I just do a quick render of the eyes, it's not much, but having that black rim to the eyes makes them pop out a little bit more, which I like. Okay, so while we're on the eyes, let's cover those. So right now we've got this glassy look to the eye. And let's see, what's the best way I can show this? I think let's do a new render and go really close on the face here, because there's a few things on the face that are going to be very important, and it'll be nice to kind of see a really nice close-up of it. So let's render this. And you'll see it's kind of creepy by default. We get this very creepy plastic man look to it. Now, the skin isn't quite right yet. We're going to fix that last, just because it's going to slow down our render quite a bit. I'll explain why in a little bit. But the eyes are definitely not right. So what makes an eye look like an eye? For one, an eye isn't made up of just one part. It's made out of two things. You've got the eye itself, but then you have the lens of the eye. So if you can see here, when I select the eyeball of the character here, it's actually selecting a lens over top of the eye, and then you have the eye underneath. This is very, very important, because without that lens, you are not going to get a proper look to the eye. It's just going to look fake, and I'll show exactly why in just a second when I start adjusting things here. But to begin with, let's just add a material to the lens of the eye. We'll start with that. So to add the material to the lens of the eye, I'm just going to create a new AI standard material. Let's call this AI lens. And I'm just going to go into the presets, and I'm going to select glass. So I want a glass material, and I'll hit replace. So this creates a nice glass look to it. Now, if you remember in the IOR chart that we had, we actually saw a value for the eye lens, which was 1 point, I'll put it at 386. So this is going to give us a reflective index that is close to what the actual cornea of the eye is. Now, additionally, the lens of the eye. Now, additionally, the lens of the eye is not smooth. It's not like glass. It's not super, super shiny. Our eyes do shine a lot, like light reflects off of them, but there is a roughness to them. It's a skin type material. So I'm going to increase the roughness so we don't have a pure reflection. So I don't want this, where we see every single reflection as if it was a mirror. I'm just going to increase the roughness a little bit. Not too much, because our eyes, you can see reflections in them, but just enough so it's a little bit rougher. So that should be good right there. So with this, let's find the material for the lens of the eye, select it, good. And then go to our AI lens, assign material to selection. There we go. So let's see, did I save this image? Good. Let's render the eyes and see what we get. Now it's going to take a little bit longer, and oh boy, is that creepy. And this part here is a part that stumps a lot of people. Whenever they're rendering eyes, they'll set everything up. Okay, the lens is like glass, render it, and then they get this demon-eyed, just black. It's creepy. What's happening here? Well, the problem that's happening is that we've got all these lights set up, and instead of the light passing through the glass or the lens, it's hitting the lens and casting a shadow on the eyeball. So basically what we're seeing is just a shadow of the lens being cast on the eyeball. And what we need to do is just turn off the ability for the lens to cast a shadow. Now to do this, I can do it per eye. So I could either select the eye here, go into the attribute editor, and under render stats, just turn off cast shadows right there. Or if you're having to do this over multiple objects, for example, if you've got a whole scene full of characters, or if I want to change both eyes at once, select both, go to Window, General Editors, Attribute Spreadsheet. And in here is basically like the attribute editor, but it lists all the objects and all their attributes. So I'm going to go under Render, find Cast Shadows, and turn those off. There we go. So with this, let's re-render those eyes. There we go. Now he looks much better. So we now have a character with eyes, and we get this really nice shine to them. It looks really good, but it's not looking right because the actual cornea, the actual eye itself, not the lens, is still not rendering properly. You can really see it in this big shine right here. So let's kind of save this image. So we've gone from gray to this. Now let's actually work on the actual eyes. So I'm going to select just the eyes here. And the way I like to do this is I'm going to select the eye geometry, and then I'm going to hit Isolate Select in Maya. Basically just to focus entirely on the geometry of the eyes. I find it easier if I have to reselect them. Kind of creepy looking, but it's there. And let's do the same thing we did before with the pants. I'm going to select the eye geometry, or sorry, the eye material of the previous one, the one that looks terrible. So where are you? Eye pupil anim, no. There we go. Graph that out, and then just make a new AI standard material. And call this AI eyes. There we go. So with this, the big thing I want to do is take the color of the eye, the texture, and turn it or tie it into my new material. And let's check the presets. Eyes are pretty reflective, but we've got the lens that's going to do most of our reflections for us. So I'm actually not going to worry about the presets. Let's just build this ourselves. I know I want the texture, the color to be at 100% here. So base is good. Now specular. There's going to be a bit of a shine, but it's going to be much rougher. If you actually, and this is kind of gross looking when you actually think about it, but when you take an eyeball and remove the lens off of it, it's actually a pretty matte material. The eyeball itself is not shiny. It's the lens that's shiny. So I'm going to increase the roughness and lower the weight of the specular quite a bit. I basically don't want it to be super, super shiny. And we'll go with that for now. Maybe just a little less there. Okay. So I'll just apply that to these eyes here, and let's turn on the texture so we see it, the difference. It's not going to show very much, but let's move the light there so we can see the shininess. So select these and assign our new eye material. Assign material to selection. There we go. So you can see that's a lot less shiny. That's good. So let's do a quick render with this. Render settings. It's always fun trying to find all the menus. There we go. So let's save this and render again. Now the big thing you'll notice is, especially on the screen right eye, we don't have that big shine in the middle. Now we're just getting that overall shine in the eye. That's good. We don't want the inside of the pupil to have a shine to it. So this is already looking much nicer, and you can see it's much brighter too, which is nice. Now, another thing with the eye that I like to do, you don't have to do this, but I find it adds a nice level to the eye, and it's really for specific camera angles that you'll notice this. But what I like to do is, for the pupil itself, I'm going to make a new material, and I'm going to go back to my basic surface materials in Maya and just create a surface shader. Now, a surface shader is basically a material that does not accept any light. It is pure color. So for example, if I set this to red, no matter what color I render, it will always show up as red. That's it. It is that color, pure and simple. Now I'm going to leave this as black. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply it to just the geometry of the pupils. So you'll see here how inside the pupil we're still getting a little bit of a shine right there. There is no shine right there on the pupil. If you actually look at the anatomy of the eye, the pupil is a hole. It is literally a hole into your eye. So there should be no shine in there. If there was a shine in there, it would mean that there's a surface in there. And there isn't. It's a hole leading into the nerves of the eye. So I'm going to select the geometry here, like so, and just assign that surface shader. Assign material to selection. And what that does is, look at that, pure black in the eyes. There are no shines. No matter where I shine a light, it will always be pure black inside the pupil. Even if I had a light pointing directly into the character's face, those pupils would stay black. Now, I don't know if it's going to show up in the render here, but let's try. Let's save that image, render, and see what, if any, difference it makes. Yeah, actually, you see it right there. Look right in this edge of the eye. You can see the difference that makes. This is fake because there's a surface right there. The pupil doesn't have a surface there. It's not a tunnel that leads into the eye. It is literally a hole. Your eye goes into this hole and it's just black. So by doing this, you get that much simpler look to the eye. It looks more like a real eye, oddly enough. It's just simpler. So there we go. So our eyes have gone from that. I'm missing the demon eye where it was all black, but you can see the differences as we go through. This one was too glassy. The eyeball itself is way too glassy. This one is close, but we've got that shine right inside the pupil. This one, nice dark pupils. And no matter where I shine a light, we're not going to get any reflections where there shouldn't be any. Now, I wanted to talk about the importance of the lens, because this is something that if you're rigging your own rig, or if you have a rig that doesn't have this, this is a way to get much better eye renders. So if we look at an eye from the side here, and I'm going to do a quick render, and the first render I'm going to do is going to be without the lens. So I just hid the lens here, and let's hit render. This looks fake. The big reason this looks fake isn't the fact that we don't have reflections. We could add reflections on this eye. Yeah, that is freaky. The reason this looks fake is the whole point of the lens over the eye is not to just kind of protect the eye. It does that, but it bends light into the eye. It's a way for our eye to capture more light. Now, when you bend light, and you can try this with like a glass of water, and you stick something in it and you see that refraction where one, like a straw will look like it's being cut in a glass of water. The reason that happens is the light is being bent. Well, if your eye is bending light in a way to capture light, is kind of bringing it in from extra angles, that means that when we see the lens, we're seeing that bend. And because it's bringing it into the center of the eye, that will mean that when we add that in, instead of having this freaky flat look, let's render it again, we get this. Now, my lights are set up in a way that this is not going to look great right here. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what angle would work best here so that we don't get a shine where basically like we're looking directly where a light is going to be pointing. But you see here, this right there is the pupil. We are seeing the pupil from an angle that we can't see the pupil. Here, we just see the edge of the cornea, the color of the eye. But with this, you actually see the pupil. And that's the importance of the lens. Without this lens, your eyes will look flat when you render them, especially when a character is in profile. When you add that lens, even when they're at a 90-degree angle from the camera, you're still going to see the pupil, and it's going to make them look alive. It's going to make them look real. And this is the advantage that a render has over a play blast. So if I play, my camera moved a little too far there. If I was to play blast this right here, it would still have that flat feeling because we are not seeing the pupil. The render, on the other hand, gives us that. So eyes are one of the areas where renders really pan out and give you a better advantage over just the default view. So let's do a render here just to kind of bring everything back and get back to our main angle there. So there we have our new eyes. So let's just get rid of all these images here. Don't need them anymore. We're just going to make comparing a little harder. So close that off, close that off, close this one off. There we go. So you can see how our image is getting there. Eyes look much better now. They actually look like eyes. Okay, so we've still got things like teeth and tongue and whatnot. Those are very similar to other things. Teeth are, well, actually, I can do the teeth super quick since we do see them quite a bit. The nice thing, well, actually, let me do the skin first. The skin's going to be the most important, and honestly, to me, is one of the coolest things to render. So I'm going to zoom in again, just so we have a view of the fingers. Oops, don't want to dock that just yet. I want to have a good view of the fingers, the ear, and the nose. These are areas that are very specific when you're rendering skin. So let's kind of bring that in there and create a render. And I hope this is all making sense so far. If not, definitely let me know. But we've got this. Let's save that. Definitely not working correctly right now. So, to create skin, I could create a AI standard surface, and let's just do skin basic. So this is just going to be basic skin. And basic skin, which is what most people would kind of just do at first, is just a skin material. Let's take the skin basic here, find the render version, which is this one here. Let's graph those out, tie in the color. So out color goes into base color, the specular goes into specular, like so. And let's turn up the roughness of the skin just to make it a little bit more or less shiny. And we could just go straight with that. Not too much else. And let's just quickly replace and see what we get. Assign material to selection. I'm just going to do a quick render here and make sure the shine is working the way it should. Good. So do a full render. And that looks way better already. He doesn't look like he's made out of plastic. Perfect. Much nicer. But it's not acting the way skin should act. This is not going to give you good skin material when you're rendering, because skin lets light through, but lets light through in a very specific way. And it's the reason why, if ever you've taken a flashlight, I've got one right here, and you shine it through your hand, I don't know how well that's, I don't want to shine it into the lens there, but you shine like a flashlight through your hand, and you see this kind of, well, you can see it here. Like as I shine it through, you can see the light through my fingers. The reason it does that is skin allows light through. And that specific way that light, or that skin allows that, is called subsurface scattering. Lights through and it lets light in and then scatters it. Basically, lets it into the surface and scatters it. Subsurface scattering. And by adding that to our material, we're going to get a much more realistic skin out of that. So I'm going to take my skin basic here, and I'm just going to remove it. And let's just call this, well, actually, let's go to my presets. And the nice thing here is that there is a skin preset. So I'm just going to replace that. And let's go through what's happened here. So the first thing is the weight of the base color has been turned completely off. It is absolutely off. So I don't need to worry about base anymore. Specular, we've got that. Now the roughness and all that is pretty much set to what we need. I'm just going to take this and tie it into the channel there. But the areas that are going to be important to us now are going to be subsurface and coat. So if you remember what I was talking about before, coat is this kind of overlay that gets put onto a material to give it kind of a glossy shine to it. Our skin has that. It's oil. Our skin exudes oil. And that creates a kind of coat on top of our skin. Without that, skin, like you can see here, will tend to look flat. It's just going to look fake. It's not going to have that depth to it that it should. Additionally, we have subsurface, which is the one we skipped earlier. Subsurface is the thing that's going to make skin feel like skin. Now, basically what subsurface does is it controls how light shines through an object. So our weight is how much subsurface are we using. Since it's skin, it's going to be 100%, so we'll set that to 1. Subsurface color. This is basically going to replace our base color. So right now it's just a default pink. I want to turn that into the actual texture color we have. So let's put that into subsurface color right in there. Now, radius. Radius is an important one because radius determines what light frequencies get through the skin. And subsurface doesn't just apply to skin, it applies to plastic, it applies to like if you ever look at Lego toys, the way they let light through it, a lot of things, especially plastics, use subsurface scattering. Marble countertops use subsurface scattering. Even though it's stone, it has subsurface scattering. So the radius basically allows you to determine what wavelengths go through the surface. Now, if you open it up by default, Maya is set to HSV, hue saturation value, which is not very good for looking at the radius of the subsurface scattering. Instead, you want to switch this to RGB 0 to 1, red, green, blue 0 to 1. What this basically allows us to do is control how much of each light wave, red, green, and blue, goes through the surface. So for human skin, red is going to be set to 100%. 100% of the light that shines through and scatters, 100% of the red spectrum is going to come out. That's why when you shine a light through, it looks red. And then you tend to have about 0.3%, or sorry, not, about 30% green and 10% blue. Now you can play around with this. Sometimes, depending on your skin tone, it's going to be different. So let's kind of adjust this to his skin tone a little bit. I think I'm going to add a little bit more blue in there. Maybe 15%. So this is basically adjusting how much of each wavelength of light shines through the surface. So for example, if you've got a blue plastic Lego toy, more blue is going to come out in the radius than other colors. So you really want to watch that depending on the material. Now, the scale. The scale is basically how deep is the light going to go into the surface. Now, this is going to change depending on your rig, depending on the size of your object. In this case, for this rig, I'm pretty sure it's 0.25. Just do a few test renders, you'll kind of see the results there. But this should give us a skin material. So with all of that, let's just quickly do a test render and see the difference. So this is just a base material compared to our initial plastic man here. And let's see what's going to happen. Now there's going to be a few things you'll notice. One, the render is going to take a little longer. Subsurface scattering does slow down things because it's way more complex. Two, you're going to notice that the skin is a little grainier. So if you look like right here, it kind of looks grainy compared to before, where it was nice and smooth. That's because we don't have as many samples for subsurface scattering. It's more complex, it needs more samples. But look at the skin difference. Suddenly, we've got the shine on the face, which is what happens with the human face. We get a shine to it because we've got oil on our skin. Even if you really dry your hands and all of that, as humans, we have oil on our skin. Other things you'll notice. You'll notice that there's a little bit of blue and green in the cheek. Like if you really zoom in there. Blue and green. That's light coming through that surface. on things like the ear. Look at the ear, how we're seeing red light coming through behind the ear. That is huge. Hey, a very nice British guy. Thank you so much for the resubscription. Oh wow, 6 months in a row. Congrats. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So subsurface scattering, this right here is the thing that makes it the most important. That slight light coming through the ear right here is gonna be what gives the character life. You'll see this in ears, in the nose, specifically the nostrils usually, and in fingers. So if you look at the fingers here, you'll notice in the previous render it had this kind of like just basic shadows, just black shadows, a little bit of a highlight there, and this pink color. But as we turn here, suddenly these shadows aren't just black. They've got a little bit of a blue-red tint to them. You can see it right in there, in the thumb right here. That's because light is shining through the hand, and it affects the color of the shadows on the other side. Again, an extreme example of this is you take a flashlight. I don't want to shine in the camera here. You take a flashlight, shine it through your hands. You'll see it right away. And I wish I could kind of show that. Yeah, right there. So you can see how that's subsurface scattering right there. How I'm shining a light through my hand and it's coming out red on the other side. Even though my hand is in shadow, it's affecting the color of that shadow, affecting the look of that hand. And it doesn't look like much right now, but in a scene where you would have a character in sunlight, especially a very intense light, this is what's going to make your character feel real. This is what's going to make the skin, the overall character just feel way better. So let's kind of bring back our camera angle to its previous position. Let's see. Hey Sin, thank you so much for the subscription as well. 7 months in a row. Wow. Awesome. Thank you so much. Man, I really appreciate that. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. So let's just do a quick render again of our old camera angle and see what we got. Man, I wish I had something to like celebrate subscribers. So to really compare, let's get rid of this render here. This, oh, no, I don't want to re-render just a region. Hitting the wrong button there. Hit this one. There we go. So get rid of that. Plastic Man. Okay. So just do a whole render again just to make sure I got the right settings. There we go. And look at the difference there. The skin is still shiny. We've still got that rim light showing right there. But you can really see it in the shadows and in the ear specifically. It doesn't look like much. I want to stress that. It's not going to be this huge, like, wow, night and day. Look at that. It's completely different. But those small details are what will make your character believable. And go from, yeah, it looks good, to, yep, that looks great. Especially in certain lighting conditions, it's just going to be awesome. So with that, we're pretty much done. At this point, I could do the teeth. Now, I will do the teeth specifically for one reason, and that is teeth are very specific in the way you can render them. It's very simple. I can just create an AI standard surface here. And under presets, I'm going to go to ceramic and hit replace. And the reason I'm going to use ceramic is ceramic has a little bit of subsurface scattering. Our teeth have subsurface scattering to them. They're bone. Bone has subsurface scattering. Now, the color you pick, usually it would be kind of a yellow color. So I can just go a little yellow right in there, because again, bone. You could add a little bit of coat to them. What adding a little coat will do is make it look wet. So it basically adds a little extra layer of shininess to them. So it'll make it, because it's in your mouth, saliva and all that, it'll make it look a little wet. You don't want to add too much, or else they'll look like they're coated in like a layer of enamel or some, well, not enamel, more like plastic. But having that in there is just going to add that extra layer of wetness to them. And let's see, specular, I'm going to increase the roughness because the teeth aren't super shiny, in the sense of they are not mirrors. So I can go with that. Now color, I'll aim for a little bit more of the yellow spectrum. Not too much. I don't want him to look like he's got horrible, horrible teeth. But just a little bit more yellow. If you make teeth perfectly white, oftentimes that looks creepier than if they're a little, like, dingier, for lack of a better word, yellow or gray. So we've got that. I can select teeth here and just make sure I name the material first. Let's take that. AI teeth. Like so. And assign that material. There we go. So it's not going to be a huge difference. We're not going to see it from this distance here. But it's going to add that wetness to it. Now, additionally, I would typically do the tongue as well. Tongue and gums for this rig. Oh, and my... Oh, there you go. Phew, I thought my almost crashed. Let's save. So, for the tongue and gums, same thing. And actually, I think I know what's happening. Is it my CPU? Yeah. So my CPU is maxing out at 100. The reason is because of this hardware shader right in there. It's not releasing. It's just continually trying to render, which was slowing things down. So if ever that happens to you, either switch it to hardware mode, hit the pause button, which, as we saw, caused a problem earlier. So I'm just going to switch it to hardware mode, and that speeds things up. Okay. So for the tongue, again, same thing. Oh, and there's the cat. Let's take the gum. I just want the color of the gums that the old rig has, and find the tongue. Let's see. What material do you have? I think it's just a base material. So, tongue, inner mouth shader 2. I believe. Yeah. So I can just kind of find that inner mouth shader 2. And same thing, I'm going to just take the color value and copy it. If ever you need to copy a color from one material to the other, just click on the color value and then deselect it. What that'll do is it'll put the color into your recent pick color right there. So you can see these are the two colors right at the end there. So with that, I can just create 2 new standard surface materials, call one gums, call the other one tongue, and I'm just going to apply the skin preset to them both. So skin and skin, and really the only difference I'm going to do is I'm going to take the colors and tie those into the subsurface. So for the tongue, make that a little darker red there. For the gums, right there, make that a little grayer, like so. And then I'm going to add a little bit of coat here, a little bit more than it already has, just to create that wet feeling to the mouth. It makes it so when you have a character stick out the tongue, it looks a little bit more tongue-like and not so much what's the word I'm looking for here? It's not quite as dry looking. Like, it's not just a red thing. It has a little bit more shine to it. It gives it a kick that it doesn't normally have. Let's see. I'm just adjusting the radius here, adding a little bit more blue to it, just so a little bit more blue light comes out. And maybe a little less green. There we go. So that should be good on those. So again, I'm going to select the tongue. Let's just assign that material. AI tongue. Assign material to selection. And then the gums as well. Make sure both are selected. AI gums, assign material to selection. Now again, we're not going to notice anything from here, but if for some reason we had a render right into their mouth, that would show up. And I'd rather be prepared than have that accidentally happen, where it's like, oops, didn't realize that. Now, one thing I didn't do was the shoes, because they're not visible in the render here. For the shoes, the big thing is to use the rubber material. So let's just kind of do that super quick here. AI standard surface. I'm going to call this shoe rubber. And under presets, just go to rubber and hit replace. And now this has a texture to it, so I can just find the shoe material here. Let's see, shirt, shoes. Yeah. So let's take that along with the shoe rubber and graph those out. And just take the color and put it into base color. There we go. Now we've got a rubber shoe material. Now keep in mind, these shoes aren't all rubber. There's going to be cloth and whatnot on top. So I would only want to apply the rubber to the bottom faces of the shoe. So let's kind of select that. Make sure I've only got the bottom faces here. And there. I'm just making sure I've got the even amount of faces on both shoes, and then I can grow my selection up to where I need the rubber to stop, which is basically right up here. And assign the rubber. Assign material to selection. And then I would add the cloth for the rest, but I don't need to worry about that since it's not in the render. But there we go. So that is pretty much getting the character ready for rendering. And at this point, we're pretty much good to go, in a way. The big problem we have here is it doesn't look really good, does it? There's pixels all over the place. It's not really good as a render in general. It definitely doesn't look as crisp and clear as these previous renders, which were nice and like pixel perfect, even though they kind of look weird now in comparison to that. Especially this one. This one looks so dead. And part of that is you can see right into his mouth, which is just creepy. Compared to that, where you get the teeth against the black of the shadow inside the mouth. That adds a lot. Okay. So, before I get into the samples here, I did want to show one last thing. And that is, what if I needed a character to be in a very specific environment? Maybe I'm animating a plate, so a character on a realistic environment, or maybe I just don't want to set up a bunch of lights myself. I don't want to have to set up a 3-point lighting system, excuse me, and all of that stuff. I want to be able to just take lights from a real world environment and put into my scene. If you want to do that, that's basically called HDR lighting. And I can show you how to set that up super quick. So I'm going to take all of these and I'm just going to add them to a display layer and hide it, just so I don't lose all the stuff I already created. And I'm going to create a polygon primitive plane, just so I have a character standing on something, like that. And instead of creating individual lights, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Arnold and I'm going to create a light, but I'm going to create a sky dome light. Now a sky dome light is basically a big dome that's going to shoot lights into my scene. It's just going to take an image and take the information from that image to create the lighting for my scene. So once I've done this, I can take my sky dome light here, go to the attribute editor, and under color, I'm just going to click this button here, and I'm going to attach a file to it. So this file can be any image technically, but the best image that you're going to get is if you use a HDR image. HDR images are very specific images that are created using a very wide exposure range. Now, if you don't have the ability to take HDR images yourself, which not many of us do, you need a very high quality camera to do it. What you can do is just go to this website right here, HDR Labs, sorry. And you'll notice that there's a bunch of different, and let me actually bring it on screen so people can see it. There's a bunch of free to use HDR images of different locations. So if you want your character to be in a city, in an apartment, on a basketball court, in the snow, I believe there's one down here, yeah, winter forest, or maybe a tropical beach. Just download that HDR image, and then you'll be able to use that to light your scene. So I've already downloaded one here, so let me extract it here, just so I can access it. And I'm just going to search through here for these images. Now we've got an 8K image right there. This is just a JPEG. I would want the HDR file. And you've got different HDR files. You've got like perfectly crisp and clear, or kind of a fuzzy environment look to it. The one you choose really depends on your scene. Let's see, I'm not seeing Arnold located. Do you mean in Maya? If you're not seeing it in Maya and you have 2017 or 18, let me just bring this in here. So I'm going to use this crisp and clear one just for now and bring that in. And you'll see it loads in right in there. So it's bringing it into this sphere here. So if you're not seeing the Arnold render, go to Windows, Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager, and just scroll down to the MTOA plugin right here, MTOA deploy, and make sure that's loaded and auto load. That's meant Maya to Arnold plugin. Once that's checked, you should see it in your render menu right there. And that's if you have 2017 or 18. If you have 2016 and below, then you'll have Mental Array instead. Although 2016, I think you have to install Mental Array. It doesn't come bundled with anymore. But let's see. We've got our light here. And you can see when I go inside the sphere, there we have it. Now, if I want to, I can take this and kind of raise it up a little bit. Kind of bring it to ground level. This is a little high, actually. Let's kind of bring that to about ground level right there. And with this, where's the sun? Okay, kind of right above. That should be good. Now here we'll also have exposure and intensity. These are going to be the two attributes that are going to be most important for getting the intensity we need in our scene. Okay, if you're on 2015, you're going to have Mental Array, which is an older renderer, still very good, but not quite as simple to use as Arnold is. Color, we've got the image here, and we don't need to use color temperature. Resolution, you want this to match your image. Typically leaving it at default is going to be okay. But if you're noticing some issues, double check your image resolution to this there. And let's just kind of use that as its default value. Actually, one last thing. The format. This is also very important. Format basically is the format of the image. Typically, an HDR image is going to be set to lat long. But depending on how they take the image, you might have to switch this. So you can see mirrored ball is actually adding a lot of distortion to this right in the back there. Angular does the same thing. So if you're noticing that the image doesn't look right, switch the format. That should solve the issue. But let's see what our basic intensity is going to give us here. So I've saved this image and let's hit render. It should be pretty dark if I assume correctly. You'll also notice that this tends to take a little longer to render. Okay, yeah, quite dark. So let's increase our exposure. I'm not going to have to increase it much. 5. Again, just do a little area. Yeah, that's a little too much. Nuclear wasteland. Maybe a little bit more than that. Too much. I'm gonna lower that down and just increase the intensity. That might be a little too much, but we'll do a full render to see the difference. Yeah, that's definitely way too much. So, let's see. Yeah, that should be better. So, there we go. Now the image you'll see is a little overblown. That's fine. If I was rendering this, I would actually hide the sky ball in the render so it doesn't show up. For now, I'm just going to leave it here just so we can see the difference. But you can see, now we've basically lit our character with just this sky ball. And you'll definitely see now the skin looks very rough. It looks like you can really see that blue and green in the skin. That's the subsurface scattering reflecting all that light the way skin should. It doesn't look great right now, but that's actually a really good sign. So we've got all of that good to go. And HDR lighting is really, really nice because you can get some really cool results just with HDR lighting. Some very realistic results. Realistic shadows. You can see like the shadow on his neck right there. I know it's kind of pixelated, so it's hard to see. But it's got that kind of nice natural feathering to it. The shadow on his arm. It's not this kind of harsh studio lighting. It adds a lot to a scene when you use HDR lighting. So we've got that. So we now have one or the other. We can create our own lights, or we can use HDR lighting. One or the other. And get some really nice results. So let me see if I can take this here. And I want to make sure that it's not showing up in my render. So let's see. For that, I'll probably need to go into my render setup, and I don't really want to cover this all in this tutorial here, just because it's a lot to go over. and I want to have a nice amount of time to go over that. But there's a few other things I want to cover in this rendering before we call it a day here, because I know usually I stop at about this time, but I do want to cover this because, as you can see, we've got this render, but it doesn't really look good, does it? It's not great. It's okay. It definitely looks better than that, but that quality, ugh, not good. So how do we increase our quality at this point? We've gotten all our settings good, we've got all the materials in place. Now we just need to up the quality, but how do we do that? Luckily, Arnold has a wonderful website full of tutorials and stuff. I highly recommend you check it out. But one of their biggest workflow tips that are helpful is this link right here, which is basically how to remove noise, which is what we're seeing here. We're seeing noise in the image, pixelation. And this is the workflow you typically want to use when you're working with this. Now, in order to do this, we do need to do one thing. We need to be able to figure out what is causing the noise. And the way we do this is, instead of rendering out one single image, we need to render out multiple passes of an image. So to do this, I'm going to go into my render options, and instead of just starting to increase a bunch of values right here and hoping that it fixes my renders here, what I'm going to go do is I'm going to jump to AOVs. AOVs are different rendering processes, or basically layers, that you can create out of a render. Now for me, I'm going to save the image formats as TIFFs. EXRs just don't work for me for some reason. I'm not going to add any compression, and let's just keep it at 8 right there. So basically, what does that mean? Image format is just the image format. You could save them out as JPEGs if you want, etc. I like TIFFs, they're high quality images. But once I do all this, when I go into AOVs, there's a few different ones that I want. I'm going to want to add an RGBA render. This is going to be just basically what I'm seeing here. This kind of gives me a kind of comparison to look at, oh, this is the whole image as one full composite. I have installed the Studio AIM library, but how do I find it in Maya? Okay, I'll cover that in just a second here. So what else do I need? I'm going to basically need different layers based on all the different things I added in. So I've got some coats in here, so I'm going to add a coat, indirect, and direct. Basically, it counts for direct lighting, lighting that hits the object directly, or indirect lighting, lighting that bounces from one object onto another. I'm going to need diffuse, that's the basic color, and probably diffuse direct and indirect, actually. So add those. I'm going to need specular. Shadow matte is also a nice one to have, but specular, direct and indirect. Subsurface scattering, direct and indirect. And I think that'll be it. So add all of those in, like so. You can see it adds a lot. But now when I render, let's see. Make sure everything's good here. Okay, so let's render this scene again. Hit render. It's going to take a little bit longer because it's going to... Oh, actually, it didn't take all that long at all. Aha! When I go to my folder, which you'll see right here, the path, this is where Maya is saving out images whenever you render. It's going to be different on each person's system, but if I go to mine, amp, and then open up my shots here, you'll notice that there we have it. All the different layers that I created. So here's the beauty layer, which is basically the full image the way we see it there. That's great. But when we're trying to discover what is causing all our noise, what we want is to look at every single pass that Maya is creating. So for example, diffuse direct. This is all the direct diffuse lighting that is happening in our scene. And you can see, there's noise on there. So we're getting some noise from our diffuse. We can see that subsurface scattering. And actually, oops, that's not the right one there. That was a previous rendering I was doing. That's subsurface scattering. Definitely a lot of noise in there. Indirect subsurface scattering, definitely noise in there. So we can start figuring out what is causing noise. And this is where this workflow starts to come in handy. So for example, we can skip this one because I know that this is not going to be a problem here because we don't have motion blur or anything. If we view the indirect diffuse AOV, so let's look here, indirect diffuse, indirect diffuse, so diffuse, direct, indirect, and we look at this. Okay, is there noise in there? Yep. Okay, so what do we do? Increase diffuse samples. Okay, that's simple enough. Go under render settings, and we need to increase our diffuse samples. Now, when you're increasing these, the big thing to keep in mind is the first one here is going to control everything globally. So our camera samples here are set to 4, and our total samples are 52 right now. Now, if I just increase the diffuse here, you'll see that it only increases diffuse samples here. It goes from 16 to 32. If I increase our camera AA samples, it increases everything. So the camera AA is basically everything. I'm just gonna bump every single diffuse or every single sample up. So this is kind of our global control. After that, we can refine each one individually. So use camera AA with caution, because you can't, if you just bump this up, it's gonna kill your render times. It's just gonna murder them. I'm gonna up this to 4 for now. Maybe we'll go 4. And I'm just gonna do a quick little render here, see how long it takes, because this is where rendering will start taking a lot longer. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Actually, let me save this version here just so we can compare it. But we'll see how long this takes to render. It could take a little bit. Our previous render took 5 seconds, I believe. This one already looks way better. So you can see, much better. We're starting to get that noise out of there. And now, this is again where looking at those samples, those individual samples here, helps. So looking at our indirect diffuse, do we still see noise? Yes. Okay, let's raise our diffuse samples. I'm probably going to go to 4 for this. You really want to be careful how fast you bump these up, or else you're going to just kill your renders. Let's see, direct specular. Does that have noise? Okay, let's check that. Direct specular. So come up here, specular direct. So this is just the shines of the character, which is actually kind of cool when you start looking at this and you see, oh yeah, the skin is pretty shiny in comparison to the shirt, but the eyes are even shinier. This is what I love about this, is you can really start comparing different things. So is this pixelated? Not too bad, actually. Like, I know it looks pixelated, but it's actually just the low res of the image. I'm not seeing noise in there, really. Now, if that was noisy, we'd increase our light samples. So you select your light, go to Attribute Editor, And right here, samples. So I could maybe increase that to 2, just to give it a little bit more detail there. I don't have to, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, let's check that workflow again. Direct specular, how's that look? And this is what I like about this sheet right here, is it makes it a very simple process of, oh, how do I get rid of all this noisiness and just blehness of my render? So direct specular, no wait, direct diffuse. So diffuse, direct. Let's look at this. Yeah, definitely noisy there. So to solve that, are the shadows noisy actually? Let's look at the shadows. Yeah, shadows are pretty noisy. Not terrible, but not great. Okay, increase light samples. I've already done that, so that should fix that. Indirect specular. So, indirect, or specular indirect. Yeah, it is creepy, but it is also really cool in the sense of what you can... That is creepy. Let's see. Excuse me. I'm not seeing too many, or too much noise in here actually. So I think that's going to be good the way it is. Now transmission, I don't have any. SS, this is where we're going to see a lot of noise. So SS AOV. So I'm actually going to switch my AOVs here, and I'm going to remove SS direct and indirect. Instead I'm just going to go with straight SS. Just like that. And re-render. And let's see how things look. So now it should take a little longer. So yeah, you can see definitely taking a lot longer now. And overall the shirt's looking way better. The skin, that's definitely where we're seeing issues. So I don't even need to look at my actual like different layers. I know that the skin needs more samples. So I would go into my Arnold render, and I'm probably going to up this to 4 for the skin. Let's kind of just do a quick render just of this patch here. Hard to see here. Still a little pixely. I don't want to push it too high, because again, that SS takes a lot of time. But that should be better. I don't actually know if it did much of a difference over 4, so let's keep it at 4. Okay. Yeah, it's still there, but I'm gonna put it to 5. Just because I know it's gonna bug me. So we'll go with that. So our render time went from a render that took, let's see, this one took 2 seconds, 1 second, that took 5 seconds, 6 seconds. Once we added everything, I think it still took about 6 seconds approximately. Now let's see how long this takes. All our samples are up. And keep in mind, this is a very small image. This is only 720 by 405. It's not full HD 1920 by 1080 or anything like that. This is a small image. It's not even 720p. As you increase the image size, it's going to slow things down quite a bit. Okay, so I'll definitely answer that before I end the stream here. But yeah, that looks way better now. Look at that skin, nice and clear, not all grainy looking. And it didn't take a huge amount of time. 41 seconds though. We took 41 seconds for that one image, but you can see much nicer. So there we go. We've rendered the image and we don't have that pixelated look. At this point, we're pretty much ready to batch render this out. So to do that, I would just go to rendering here and go to render, batch render right there. And that'll just take my whole animation and render out each single frame. Now, keep in mind, when you're doing this, it's going to be long. Do this at night when you're not going to need to use your computer. Because we took 41 seconds to render this one image. That's going to be 41 seconds per frame. Not 41 seconds for your whole shot. 41 seconds per frame. If you've got a 600 frame shot, and let's say it takes a minute per frame, that's 600 minutes that you're going to have to wait for your shot to finish. That's a long time. That's 10 hours just to render out a scene. This is why rendering, as nice as it is only something you should do when you are finishing your animation and you have some extra time to kill. It is not something to do when you want to submit an assignment and go, I'll just make it look cooler and I'll render it out. No. Only render something when you have extra time and when you're not currently working on this assignment or on the project. This applies to a studio as well. I will never render a project when I'm working on a studio until it says, or the director says, done, final, and I have nothing else to work on that needs work, because it's just going to be a time sink. You're going to spend a lot of time, not just on the setting up process, on the rendering process. It's just going to take your whole computer and take hours and days to finish rendering everything. So save that for when you have the time. Now, once you've got everything rendered, it'll be a bunch of individual images. And there's one last thing I want to show, which is the importance of having all those AOV files. So all the different parts right here, the subsurface scattering, all of this stuff. So you can see there's the subsurface scattering. It might seem like, what's the point? Why do I need all of these individual parts? It's helpful for testing for one, which is nice. But it gives you better renders in the end as well. So for example, if I had my beauty shot here, this is just the single beauty file right there. Well, this is the file, and this is all I can do with it. That's it. I don't really have much control over this. I could adjust some curves or some levels, but that's about it. But if I have all the other layers, what I can do is bring them all in. So here's my diffuse direct, diffuse indirect. Let's see, my shadow matte. Make sure I enter here. Oop, there's the shadow matte, which is actually really cool to be able to see where all your shadows are. So we've got our shadow matte. We've got our specular direct and indirect. Right there. We've got our subsurface scattering, which is really creepy looking. And then let's see. I think that's all of them. So with all of these, what I can now do is take all these layers and just set them to linear dodge or add. So if you're using, I'm doing it in Photoshop here because it's faster, but if you're using Adobe Premiere, Adobe After Effects, what's the other one? Free program. It's called, what's it called? Not Houdini. It's a editing software. Now the name's gonna bother me. It's DaVinci. You can set all the images in and then switch them to linear dodge add, And when I start doing that, you'll see that the image starts to come together. Now, actually, I'm going to take that one. Actually, no, let's keep that. So linear dodge, add, linear dodge, add, and actually, yeah, I'm going to take away the shadow one because that's just causing issues. But there we go. We've got pretty much the same image as this. Not quite. I'm actually missing something for the shirt right there. One of my AOVs is missing. So if ever you notice something like that, like, oh, yeah, the teeth and this shirt, they're missing something. More likely than not is because I forgot to include an AOV. So I would need to double check my files and whatnot. I wonder if it's the coat, actually. I don't think I brought the coat in. So coat, and let's add those in. There we go. So why is this important? Well, this is important because I now have direct control over every single aspect of this shot. If I find that, yeah, his skin's too shiny, let's turn down the opacity. I think it's this one. So that's better. Okay. What if I don't like how specular something looks? Let's lower that opacity. What if his skin tone isn't quite right, but I've rendered it. I just took 10 hours to render this shot, but his skin tone, it's not quite looking right. I can take my specular channel right here, maybe add a, let's say, curves. Those are always nice to work with. Attach it to that layer, and maybe I can adjust that, and there we go. So maybe make him just a little darker right there, or maybe I could add just a little bit more to the red. So maybe a little bit more red in his skin tone right there. I can adjust everything individually without it affecting anything else. So it might be a little bit more work to put everything together, but when you consider the length of the time it took you to render all of this in the first place, the 10 plus hours that it could have taken to render this out, if there's something wrong with it and you only notice right at the end, you don't have to spend another 10 plus hours trying to fix it, especially if it's just a small thing. So this is extremely helpful, and you can definitely see I missed something because I don't have the eye color in there. So I missed one of my AOVs, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Hopefully it makes sense. So that's pretty much rendering with Arnold, and actually we covered more than I thought we would today. And overall, it is complex. It is a deep topic, and we just barely scratched the surface. But even with just that basic surface detail that we've covered, we ended up with a pretty interesting result compared to that. Like when you compare the two together, that is a big difference. And when you go from that to that, that is also a big difference. Now, does that mean that you always have to render your shots for your demo reels and things like that? No. There are ways of getting really beautiful results just with Hardware 2.0 and Viewport 2.0 lighting. And I've gotten shots that look pretty much render quality with just that. And the advantage of that, of setting it up with Hardware 2.0 and Viewport 2.0, is that the longest it'll take to render or prepare is how long it takes to play blast. So maybe a minute for the whole 600 frames of a shot versus a minute per frame. Or it could be 10 minutes per frame or more. So as animators, Viewport 2.0 and Hardware 2.0 are more often than not going to be the best friends that you have for creating really good shots for your demo reel or for your just for yourself. However, if there is a scene that you need specific lighting or rendering, usually it involves the eyes or like a character interacting with a glass object or something like that, that you really want to sell this feeling, or when there's a very specific lighting you want, something dark and moody or something really like atmospheric, that's when rendering comes in. If your shot doesn't have that, if it's just a simple scene, an acting shot that's not going to have this really atmospheric lighting, do not worry about it. As fun as rendering can be, and it is fun, I really like doing it, it is time intensive. It took us 3 hours just to get this result here. Now I know it could have gone faster because we did a lot of tangents and stuff, but it's still 3 hours. Whereas I could have set up the same thing in Viewport 2.0 in probably 30 minutes to get a similar result, and I'd still, like, we've taken 3 hours and I still have to render all of this out. Even if this was just a 100 frame shot at a minute per frame, that's, well, let's say it's 60 frames. A minute per frame, that's still an hour. An hour to render this out. And then I still have to composite it afterwards. So I'm not saying all of this to discourage you from rendering. Definitely not. Just keep in mind that it is a long process and should only be done if you have the time and the energy to go through with all of it. More often than not, Viewport 2.0 is going to be way better as a choice for you. As an animator, it's just going to be more productive in the long run. So I think with that, I don't have too much else to cover here. Now, to answer Mary Tag's question, when you open or when you install the studio library, you should see a button come up here in your custom shelf right there. So if I click on that, that'll bring in my studio library. If you don't see that, it should show the code on the site or in the download. So the code should be, if I edit this here, right there. So import studio library.main parentheses. So that's the actual command that's being run when that button hits. And that command, you can copy it out from here. Just type it into the script editor right there. And it is a Python script, double check that. It's not a Mel script, but Python. That script should be in either the download for the program or on the site itself, I believe. Or ideally, the button should be installed when you install the tool. Hey Enrique, hello! I'm doing well, how are you? I'm just about to end the stream, unfortunately. I just spent the last 3 hours rendering, so where is the render here? There it is. So I showed how to get render results like this, or something like that. Very simple render. But better than Maya's defaults, which are these. So unless anyone has questions here before we call it, I think that'll be it. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out here and for watching as I show the rendering process. I hope it was helpful. I hope it made sense. I know there's a lot we didn't cover, and there's a lot more that goes into rendering than just this, especially if you want like really photorealistic results. But hopefully it kind of gives you a taste of what you can do very quickly and then you can kind of expand on the areas that you want more info on. And definitely check out, if you're using Arnold, check out the Solid Angle website. Just do a search for Arnold tutorials, and their website is fantastic for tutorials, scenes you can download and do tests on, just all sorts of stuff. You can learn how to use Arnold just from their website alone. It's fantastic. So with that, I think I'll call it here. Thank you so much again for hanging out. Hope you have a wonderful week, and see you around, I hope. Take care. Bye. Bye.